Hello guys, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto was forgotten? Lost Sakura, Anko and Kushina Part 3. Author's notes. Alright, so I may have gotten a little distracted with the plot bunnies this past week. I had started the week working on this story, only for those pesky fur balls to gnaw at my mind, which gave birth to the two other stories I started. So now that they have been sated, back to this one. Not only that, but my monitor died on me over the weekend, thus rendering my PC out of commission until I was able to replace it, so that was fun. Anyways, moving on. In the last chapter, Hiruzen got to see that his plan to have Sakura killed had failed, much to his disappointment. To further increase his frustration, even Anko had avoided a run-in with her former sensei, thus leaving the old bastard with two failed attempts to break Naruto emotionally. But on a happy note, Sakura finally got her first kiss. Not to mention she is slowly piecing together the pieces of the puzzle that has been laid out before her, exposing horrible truths about her own village, and its Hokage. And while she doesn't know the exact details, she does know that Naruto and the girls from Barugakure have a connection. Should be fun when she finds out. Not to mention, last chapter we also got to see Kiba get smashed into the ground by a very upset Morgiana. We all knew his alpha ways was going to land him in trouble one day. Question is, did he learn his lesson? Discord. Do you like anime? Are you a gamer? Then come join my Discord server, a multi-purpose server for video games, anime, and fanfiction. Authors are invited to come toss ideas back and forth and share their own stories, and readers are invited to add suggestions, make requests, or just chat away. Hit me up with a private message for server information. Review Corner. Enter the Dark. I know I already answered this in a private message, but others may have similar questions, so here we go. Q. Kakashi knows that Naruto is both Kushina and Minato's son. So why'd Kakashi kidnap Naruto? What is his reward that made the risk worth it? A. Short version, Kakashi is more loyal to Konoha than he is to his late sensei and his wife. Q. Same question as 1, but applied to Jiraiya. A. Mostly the same as Kakashi. He was raised in Konoha and wants to see it on top of the elemental nations. Also in this story he will be obsessed with fame and the prophecy thing, and all of that. Q. How did Kushina survive losing Kurama? A. Easy answer, plot armor. Though, I am leaning towards Kurama purposely leaving a bit of chakra behind within her to ensure she survives when he felt himself being pulled out against his will. Keep in mind, in this story the Kyuubi has a good relationship with the Uzumakis. Q. When and why did Kushina leave for Barugakure? A. During the sacking of Uzu, many of the Uzumakis fled to Barugakure, which was allied with Uzu and Konoha. So with her husband dead, Kushina had no reason to stay within Konoha, so she went to where the rest of her clan was. Praetorkson, you are going to be able to rebuild Uzu with the amount of bricks Hiruzen will be shitting when Kushina arrives in the village. 12 Ukami 12 There are a few that are not as they seem, which will be revealed in the coming chapters. Though you are correct, no redemption for the primary 3 involved with Naruto's kidnapping. Hyper A 2019 I have something else in mind for Naruto to proclaim, something that will chill Hiruzen to the bone. Jägermeister 31 Fortunately, I already have the fight planned out between Naruto and Omoi. Though poor Naruto, while he is used to being hated, he at least knows why the populace of Konoha hates him. Omoi though, poor Naruto has no idea why, lol. Harem, Anko, Aqua, Esdeath, Kairi, Koyuki, Mabui, Morgiana, Pira, Rory, Sakura, Zeon, and Yoruichi. Remember me. Chapter 10. Mabui looked on in horror as the names displayed across the screen for all to see. Beside her, Omoi gained a sadistic grin as he saw the names, imagining that Kami must be looking out for him. Grin still in place, the Kumo swordsman departed the stands, imagining the various ways he could hurt the blonde teen that had taken his girl from him. Perhaps even kill him, if he was lucky enough to land such a blow before the proctor would interfere. Omoi is going to kill him, you know that, right? Karui pointed out, earning a groan from the silver-haired beauty. Mabui didn't want to imagine what would happen if her teammate would be successful. Without a doubt, if Omoi were to land a killing blow, the girls from Barugakure would rip him apart before he would even get the chance to celebrate. Let's hope not. The silver-haired Kunoichi commented with a sigh, absolutely despising the situation she found herself in. She knew she should cheer for her teammate, but on the other hand, she didn't want Naruto to lose either. Why couldn't they have been paired up against other participants? So you're saying you want Omoi to lose? The redhead inquired in a half-teasing tone. Though the red-haired Kunoichi didn't get all the drama going on between her fellow teammates and the Naruto boy. Mostly on her male teammate's part. She understood where Mabui was coming from, she had agreed to an arrangement and she wanted to at least give it a chance. Omoi on the other hand, has seemed to become increasingly obsessed with the silver-haired Kunoichi. It was becoming rather concerning for the two Kunoichi. It's not that, Mabui replied, not catching the joking tone her teammate was using. I don't even want to imagine what the Barugakure girls will do to him if he actually succeeds in killing Naruto-san. Karui couldn't help but shiver at the thought. It was very clear during their meeting with the Barugakure team that all 5 of the girls were extremely protective over the blonde teen. Especially now that they had found him after years of searching, only to find one of their closest allies were responsible for his disappearance. Well, all we can do is just watch and see. The red-headed swordswoman commented, earning a nod in agreement from her friend. Arena floor. Naruto stared across the arena at his opponent, a feeling of uneasiness washing over him. Warning him that this particular participant had ill intentions. His opponent in question was a young Kumogakure shinobi with dark skin, and short spiky white hair. Dark eyes with his eyelashes curving upwards from the corners. The Kumo nin's attire consisted of an overlong shirt with a hood, with red bandage hand guards and Kumogakure shin guards. Finishing off the young genin's outfit was his black Kumogakure headband, and dark gray flak jacket, and a single lollipop in his mouth. I really don't see why Mabui-chan is so fixated on you. The Kumo genin commented with a slight sneer as he glared at the blonde Jinchuriki. You don't look like anything special, only an idiotic dope that wears the brightest colors just to get attention. Meanwhile, Naruto only frowned at the Kumo genin before him, a bit confused as to who this Mabui person was that is supposedly fixated on him. Kurama, what the hell is he talking about? The blonde mentally inquired. Not sure, Kit, answered the fox, equally as confused as his container. But he seems extremely upset at you for whatever reason, so better keep your guard up. I am going to show Mabui-chan just why she should be focusing on me, instead of you. Omoi finished as he drew his blade and got into a fighting stance. Question. Naruto spoke. Are you related to Kiba by chance? Because you kind of have that same mindset that women are property rather than people. Despite himself, Hayate couldn't help but snicker at the blonde genin's retort, especially since the sword-wielding genin seemed even more infuriated at the response. Seeing as the two combatants were ready, the sickly swordsman started the match before jumping out of the way. Omoi wasted no time in initiating the fight as he swiftly closed the gap between himself and the blonde, bring his blade up in a right, upwards horizontal slash, prompting Naruto to backpedal as the blonde just as the blade slashed through his jumpsuit, drawing some blood from the Jinchuriki's chest. Naruto didn't have time to react as the Kumo swordsman quickly brought the blade around for another strike, forcing Naruto to tilt his head to avoid another severe injury, receiving another slash on his left cheek. Pushing chakra through his legs, Naruto bounded back to give a significant distance between himself and his attacker and give him time to formulate a plan. Kit, this guy is really trying to kill you. Kurama pointed out the obvious. Noting that each slash the silver-haired genin made was aimed at lethal points on the body. You think I don't know that? Naruto responded sarcastically. Seriously, who the hell is this Mabui girl that this guy is so hung up on? We'll figure that out later. We need to come up with a plan first that keeps you alive without blowing your cover. The Kyuubi responded. Right. The blonde agreed as out of instinct he summoned forth a couple dozen of shadow clones to send at his opponent to keep him occupied and away from the real Naruto. Got any ideas? Actually, Kurama began, watching as his container's clones rushed the Kumo swordsman. The fox could see that while the young man was adept in his use of the sword, he did struggle when there was more than one opponent coming at him. I do have an idea, but first send some more shadow clones and watch. Okay. Naruto frowned slightly, but still did as suggested and created a dozen more clones, ordering them to attack the Kumo genin once more, just as Omoi had cut down the last shadow clone. Though the blonde Jinchuriki did find it funny when the swordsman started cursing when he saw more clones coming at him. Do you see it, Kit? The fox inquired, coaxing his container to see what he did. Remaining silent, Naruto focused on what the fox was implying. Within seconds, the blonde saw what the fox was talking about. While the white-haired genin was good with a blade, he was no jonin. He was a genin, just like Naruto. As such, the Kumo swordsman was having issues keeping up with the amount of clones Naruto kept sending his way. I see it, Naruto commented. He can't keep up with more than one opponent at a time. Now how to use this to my advantage? You mean besides you doing the same to him as you did to that Mizuki bastard, and just pummeling him into the ground? Kurama deadpanned. That too. The blonde chuckled. But I need to shut him up for a while before he spouts off something that could blow my cover and compromise our plan of escaping this shithole. Agreed, Kit. The fox nodded. What about that siphon seal of yours? Siphon seal? That could work. Naruto mused to himself as he watched as more and more of his clones were able to tag hits on the white-haired swordsman. Even though I designed it to hold on to my target to drain them of their chakra, if enough clones are making contact with him, it should work the same. Make it happen, Kit. Mentally nodding in confirmation, Naruto set to work making even more clones. Though with these ones, he made sure to add more chakra into them before silently commanding them to use the seal chosen to siphon the energy from the Kumo genin. Omoi let out a loud curse as he saw even more shadow clones descend upon him as he recklessly began swinging his blade around, aiming to make quick and precise cuts to severely reduce the amount of clones surrounding him. Though with each clone he cut down, the plume of smoke that erupted afterwards only served to impair his vision, allowing others to get in quick jabs onto his body. With each strike, Omoi began to feel the energy slowly leave his body as his breath became more and more ragged and labored. Still, he persevered, continuing to cut through more and more of the clones as they continued to work to overwhelm him, which was working as with each clone he managed to cut down, more were able to slip through his defenses and score more blows against his body. After nearly 3 minutes of keeping the clones at bay, Omoi finally succumbed to the blonde Jinchuriki, as Naruto had switched places with one of his clones and caught the dark-skinned swordsman in a rear choke hold, which only served to sap the energy from the Kumo genin even faster as the blonde's clones proceeded to take advantage of the situation by scoring some more shots in before Omoi finally fell unconscious. Seeing no movement in his opponent, Naruto cautiously released his hold, ready to swap himself with one of his clones if need be. However, it was not required as Hayate moved in to check on the fallen swordsman before signaling the end of the match and declaring Naruto the winner, much to the surprise of the spectators, as medics ran out onto the arena floor to attend to the defeated genin. None more so than the village elders, who openly scowled from their viewing booth. They had hoped that by rigging the randomizer and pitting the boy against the Kumogakur swordsman, the Jinchuriki would suffer a severe injury and remove him from the exams altogether, partially under the Sandame's orders, as Hiruzen had hoped to remove the boy from the exams altogether in a clean fashion. Though once again, the old mont's hopes had been crushed. Panting heavily, Naruto dismissed the rest of his clones before departing the arena floor and returned to the stands. A sense of relief washing over him as not only had he managed to qualify for the finals, but he had managed to keep his cover intact. All he had to do now was last until the finals, which was still a month away, though with the girls in the village, it would be much more bearable. Excuse me, Naruto-san. A feminine voice broke the blonde from his musing. Looking up the flight of stairs he was walking up, he spotted two dark-skinned Kumogakure kunoichis. One silver-haired, and one red-headed. Must be that guy's teammates. Naruto observed. Though I sense no ill intent from them, so guess they are not sore over me beating him. Yes, I wanted to apologize for my teammates' actions in the arena. The silver-haired girl started, tentatively making her way down the flight of steps, as the red-haired kunoichi stayed at the top. Stopping just as she stood before Naruto, getting to finally see her fiancé up close. A small blush dusting her cheeks as she took in his face. You are Mabui, I presume. Naruto ventured to guess. Yes. The silver-haired kunoichi blushed slightly. I see, then perhaps you can explain why your teammate personally wanted to kill me. The blonde inquired, in a soft yet stern tone, implying that while he didn't blame her exactly, he still wasn't happy that Omoi had every intent to kill him on that arena floor. Omoi has been a bit obsessed with me. Mabui sighed, casting her eyes to the floor, ashamed by the actions of her sole male teammate. Yeah, I gathered that much. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle lightly. He didn't want to come off that he was accusing her for his actions. But he also mentioned that you were fixated with me, why? About that, the silver-haired kunoichi blushed severely, before looking him in his blue eyes. I am one of your fiancés. Wait, what? The blonde could only stare in surprise. Not to sound rude, but I don't even know you. That is understandable, Mabui stated with a sigh. Your mother had set it up as a surprise, but you disappeared before we could formally meet. My mother. Naruto narrowed his eyes slightly. Then that means you. We know your secret, yes. Mabui interrupted before holding her hands up in a surrendering gesture. However, I am on your side. You mean, we are on his side. The red-haired kunoichi corrected from her position at the top of the stairs. Karui, by the way. And no way in hell am I letting my sister in all but blood do this alone. I sense no malicious intent behind their words, Kit. Kurama commented from within the blonde's mind, earning a mental nod from his host. Pleasure to meet you. The blonde nodded to the now identified Karui. Anyways, we should probably not linger much longer. Mabui sighed. No doubt if you don't show up by your teammate soon, others will become suspicious. But, I would really like to sit down and get to know you better. I can't promise anything until I know what the old bastard has planned for after these preliminary matches. Naruto admitted, scratching the back of his head. You think he is going to try something because your other fiancés are here? The silver-haired kunoichi inquired. Not openly, no, Naruto mused. Especially not after I have qualified for the finals. I have no doubt that he, or others under his orders, rigged the randomizer to have me face a weapons specialist, since I am supposed to be a brawler type, and it would have been a bad matchup for me. Though I doubt the old bastard planned on your teammate trying to kill me. Speaking of which, Karui quirked an eyebrow. How did you beat him? Smirking some, Naruto allowed the seals to appear on his hands that he had used to sap the chakra from their teammate. What are those? Mabui asked. Seals that I created. The blonde explained. Each time I make physical contact with someone, it saps away some of their chakra, so when I have a small army of clones attacking, it speeds up the process. So your teammate is only suffering from moderate chakra exhaustion. Wow, was all the two kunoichi could respond with. Clearly impressed with the blonde's ingenuity, since it clearly hid his skills, but still gained him the win. Anyways, it was nice to meet you both, but I should get going before anyone comes to check on me. Right, Mabui agreed, though frowned slightly as she wanted to spend more time with him. Staring into his cerulean blue eyes, before she let a smile come to her face Before Naruto could ask what she meant, Mabui had closed the distance between the two of them and brought him into a firm embrace, allowing her lips to collide with his. The first thing the Jinchuriki noticed, aside from her impressive bust pressing against his chest, was how soft and warm her lips were. Deciding to take it up a notch, Naruto probed her lips with his tongue, asking for entrance, which she granted as she parted her lips slightly, allowing his tongue to invade her mouth and wrestle with her own, eliciting a pleasured moan from the Kumo Kunoichi. Slowly breaking the kiss, Mabui leaned back, her eyes glazed over with a smile on her face. Meanwhile, Karui stood back and had watched the entire scene play out, completely shocked at the boldness of her teammate. Once I know what the old man's plan is, I will contact you and let you know of a meeting place. Naruto informed the two, though mainly Mabui. You are staying at the Soaring Leaf Hotel. While it wasn't the only hotel within the village, it was the most popular amongst the foreign visitors, especially during the Chunin exams. Yes, came the short reply. All right, I'll get in contact with you as soon as I can. Nodding in affirmation, the three genins parted ways, with the two Kumogakure Kunoichis heading down to check on their teammate, as it was expected of them to do, and Naruto taking his place next to Sakura to watch the rest of the matches. You alright, Naruto-kun? The Pinkett asked as the blonde Jinchuriki took his place beside her at the railing, turning her attention fully to him to address the cuts he had received from the match. You took a while to return from your match. Yeah, Naruto assured her with a smile. Just used a bit too much chakra by spamming the shadow clones. This wasn't a complete lie, since he had used a considerable amount of his own chakra to summon forth his small army of shadow clones, not to mention channeling chakra through his seals to keep them active during his match. And while he could ask Kurama to refill his reserves, the two of them really didn't want to take the chance unless it was absolutely necessary. Only you would use such a technique to overcome your opponent with sheer numbers. Sakura sighed while she shook her head, knowing full well that while useful, the shadow clone technique was not designed for frontal, instead, it was more of an infiltration and spying technique. It worked. Naruto grinned. Slowly, a comfortable silence fell between the two as they continued to watch the matches below, cheering and supporting their fellow Konoha genin, while Naruto would silently cheer for his Heims, which they themselves had put on some good matches, even though Naruto could tell that they were holding back considerably, though there had been a few glimpses of their true skill throughout the matches, though ironically not from their own matches. Two such moments stood out the most. The first moment was during the match between Tamari of the Wind from Sunagakure, and Konoha's up-and-coming weapons mistress, Tenten. While the bun-haired Kunoichi had given it her all, the Suna Nin's wind attacks had proved too much for the budding weapons mistress to overcome. However, towards the end of the match, Tamari had intended to severely cripple her opponent. As Tenten begun to fall, the blonde-haired Kunoichi had positioned her iron fan directly below the girl, clearly intending to break her back from the impact. Rory, however, would have none of it. Seeing what was about to happen, the raven-haired halberd wielder had flung her weapon into the center of the arena with such force that when it had impacted, it had cracked and created an upheaval in the ground which sent the Suna Kunoichi flying back before the Reaper had landed atop the handle of the halberd and caught Tenten before she hit the ground. As the medics had rushed out to collect the defeated weapons mistress, Rory had leveled a cold glare towards the fan user. A silent warning being sent, which caused Tamari to shudder under the ruby-eyed woman's gaze. The second time had come during Rock Lee's and Gaara's match. The bull-haired taijutsu prodigy had given the red-haired Suna Jinchuriki a run for his money, especially when the green-clad boy took off the weights he had been wearing throughout the match, allowing him to move at such speeds that he managed to slip through Gaara's sand defense, being the first to score a hit on the redhead. Though, even after using his own forbidden taijutsu skill, it still proved ineffective against the Jinchuriki. While Rock Lee was exhausted from using such skills, Gaara had struck. Rock Lee had attempted to evade the oncoming attacks, but the sheer amount of sand was too much for the exhausted boy, as the sand wrapped around both the green-clad boy's leg and arm, crushing them both. Before the sand began to encase its victim, despite the proctor's call to cease the match. A series of splashes of water struck the sand, rendering it unusable, catching the red-haired Jinchuriki's attention, prompting him to look at the offending person that had denied him his kill. Standing firm before him was Kairi, unflinching as the unstable Jinchuriki stared her down. Though currently unable to act, as water had rendered his sand ineffective to utilize. Not to mention the proctor had warned him that should he continue his attack, he would be disqualified from the exams. While the red-head Jinchuriki would love to sat his mother's bloodlust, he had reluctantly complied and left the arena, allowing the medics to carry off the crippled boy to be treated. Then there had been Sakura's match against her once again best friend, Ino. Though the match had proven to both Kunoichi that they had seriously slacked off on their training, and showed where their flaws were. The match had ended in a double knockout, much to both girls' disappointment. Each making a promise to one another and their teammates that they would train harder and take their career as Kunoichi more seriously. Then there was the match between the sweet, but shy Hinata Hyuga against her own cousin. An arrogant boy that held a grudge over the young heiress for something well beyond her own control, as well as a majority of the main branch family of the Hyuga clan. Though the boy was so entrapped by his own hatred, that he had literally attempted to kill his own cousin, purposely aiming for her heart before he was stopped by the proctor and 3 other Jonin in the form of Might Guy, Kurenai, and Asuma. Meanwhile, Naruto stood between Neji and the fallen Hyuga heiress, glaring at the misguided boy as he begun to spout nonsense of the Jonins showing favoritism to the main branch of his clan. It was then and there, that Naruto had made a blood vow against Neji, promising to avenge Hinata, causing the Hyuga prodigy to scoff at the blonde's words. Already deeming him a failure as fate had dictated. Though Naruto remained undeterred, stating that fate was only a crutch for the weak. A statement Neji did not take kindly to. As of this moment the preliminaries of the 3rd exam are now complete. Hayate proclaimed, catching everyone's attention as the final match had concluded. To those of you who have won your bouts and qualified for the finals of the 3rd phase of the exams, congratulations. Now, I will explain the rules for the finals. Hiruzen began as he stepped forward, allowing the Chunin hopefuls to see him. As it was mentioned at the start of the preliminaries, you will conduct your final round of bouts in front of everyone. Each of you represent your village of your respective lands. So, we want you to exhibit and fully showcase your various talents. The Hokage continued. As such, the finals will commence 1 month from now. What? One of the sound genin stated. Why not do it right here, right now? We call this the requisite preparation period. The elder village leader replied. A period that allows us to relay the results of the preliminaries to the rulers and cages of your various villages, and to invite them to attend the finals. This also serves as a preparation period for you applicants. During this month-long period, you may analyze what you have seen during these matches and use it to increase your chances of victory. Hiruzen continued. Though, some of you probably ended up exposing everything you've got in front of your rivals, while others among you were terribly injured. So, in order to level the field, this month is also to be used to heal and train. Having said his piece, the elder village leader took a step back as Anko stepped onto the arena floor with a box in her hands. Now, before you maggots run off, there is one thing you must do first. Anko stated. All of you line up. When I come to you, you are to reach inside and grab just one piece of paper. That paper will have a number on it, that number will dictate your position in the final matches. One by one, each of the qualifiers grabbed their slip of paper and called out their numbers, allowing Ibiki to write them down on his clipboard. After a few moments, all the papers had been drawn, and Ibiki had revealed the line-up for the finals in the following order. Naruto Uzumaki vs Neji Hyuga. Zeon vs Karui. Sasuke Uchiha vs Gaara. Mabui vs Aqua. Kankuro vs Shino Aburame. Rory, the Reaper, vs Tamari. Shikamaru Nara vs Dosu. Morgiana vs Kairi. Now then, you are all dismissed to plan out your training, rest up, or whatever else you please. Hiruzen stated. Now, Do any of you have any questions? May I? Shikamaru asked, raising his hand to gain the elder village leader's attention. This is a tournament, correct? So that means there will only be one winner. The Nara stated. Then does that mean that only one person will be promoted to Chunin? No, that is not the case. The Hokage replied. For the finals, you will be observed by many judges, not just myself. We will be looking at your overall performance throughout your matches, and will determine an absolute value to your skills. Those that are deemed to have sufficient skills will be considered for the promotion. So, that means there is a chance all of us could become Chunin? Tamari inquired. Yes, came the short and simple reply. However, it is also possible that none of you will be promoted either. Seeing as there were no more questions, Hiruzen had dismissed the participants, though his eyes lingered on the blonde Jinchuriki as the boy met up with his team before the trio that made up Team 7 departed the arena floors, no doubt in search of their sensei. Letting out a sigh, he summoned one of his Anbu to have Kakashi meet him in his office before he talks with his team. With those girls in the village, I cannot risk having the boy encounter them. He thought to himself. I'll need to bring Jiraiya back to take the boy out of the village for the month. Barugaker, a fair-skinned woman with brown eyes and straight blonde hair, parted down the center with shoulder-length bangs that framed her face, as the rest traveled down to her lower back, tied into two loose ponytails sat before the large desk that Kushina was seated behind. A swirl of excitement and nervousness washing over the blonde woman, as well as her companion, apprentice and surrogate daughter. You said you had news, Kushina-chan. The blonde inquired, the nervousness showing in her voice due to the red-haired Baruchage being eerily silent since they had answered the woman's summons. Before I tell you, I need to know something, Tsunade. Kushina stated, pushing herself up from her chair. Did you have anything to do with it? Anything to do with what? Tsunade asked, clearly confused as she stood up to look the woman before her in the eye. A woman she considered a sister in all but blood. Konoha was behind Naruto's kidnapping. Kushina finally answered, earning a surprised gasp from both Tsunade and her companion. Are you sure? Just over a month ago, we sensed Kurama's chakra signature. The redhead explained. It came from Wave Country. I dispatched the girls to investigate. They had learned that Naruto-kun was there with a genin team from Konoha, under one Kakashi Hatake. Kakashi. Tsunade whispered disbelievingly. But he should have known it was Naruto, unless Kakashi was the one that kidnapped my son, and placed a memory seal and loyalty seal on him. Kushina bluntly stated. And I have no doubt that he did it under the orders of Hiruzen. Fortunately, the girls have made contact with him in Konoha, now all that is left is to bring him home, but I will see the ones responsible for his kidnapping pay for their transgressions. What can I do to help? Tsunade asked, looking Kushina dead in the eye to show that she was serious. Luckily, we were able to get not only lights, but also internet back without 2 days after Hurricane Delta hit. Which is great, because I was honestly expecting to not have it for at least 3 to 5 days, if not a week. Also very fortunate that hardly any damage happened to the house, and the surrounding areas. Anyways, last chapter we got to see the fight between Naruto and Omoi with our poor blonde having no idea why Omoi is so pissed at him, which was amusing. Fortunately, our blonde hero had a trick up his sleeve to safely end the match. Not only that, he finally got to meet Mabui and learn exactly why the Kumo swordsman was trying to take his head off. Now, with the preliminary matches over, what is going to happen over the month break? Discord. Do you like anime? Are you a gamer? Then come join my Discord server, a multi-purpose server for video games, anime, and fanfiction. Authors are invited to come toss ideas back and forth and share their own stories, and readers are invited to add suggestions, make requests, or just chat away. Hit me up with a private message for server information. Review Corner. 12 Ukami 12 Mabui's kiss was more of a spur-of-the-moment thing. Though I will say that she is a little jealous that the other girls already have a deep connection with Naruto. So she is a little eager to try and establish a connection of her own. As for additional girls, no. The list is complete. Those currently listed are all that will be added. Praterkson, yup. As stated, they are going to be able to rebuild the village with the amount of bricks Hiruzen will be shitting. Especially once Kushina arrives. Unsen Musho, yup, and I have a special plan for Tsunade. Bloodbrother 18 Fear not, Naruto will have more time with his ladies throughout this chapter. Especially after some certain events happen. Jägermeister 31 The fight between Rory and Tamari will be interesting, even though it will be mostly because of Rory, playing with her food, so to speak. Also, the fact that the Barugaker girls have information about the invasion about to happen, allows them to thin the numbers a little by removing combatants. As for what Naruto will do about Jiraiya, you'll see. Story artist. What is Naruto going to be doing with his fiancés over the month-long break? Lots and lots of. Actually, not really. They will be bonding and training. As for how Naruto will meet Yoruichi, Esdeath, and Pira. Well, I will say that Yoruichi is already in Burgaker, so she will make her appearance when they return, in CSSIC Yoruichi fashion. Esdeath is currently fighting in the Kurigakure Civil War, and Pira will be making her debut shortly after they return to Barugaker after the exams. MBAK Titan. Fear now, I will be completing this story. Though I do have multiple stories going on at once. So, sometimes updating can get a little chaotic. Especially with trying to balance my own responsibilities away from the keyboard. Harem, Anko, Aqua, Esdeath, Kairi, Koyuki, Mabui, Morgiana, Pira, Rory, Sakura, Zeon, and Yoruichi. Remember me. Chapter 11. The smell of antiseptic and sterilization permeated throughout the hallways as Naruto made his way through the hospital corridors under a henge. It was a smell that he had grown to absolutely despise. No doubt due to his constant stays within the building to get treated after one of his countless mob beatings throughout the years. Which had pretty much equated to the doctors or nurses just leaving him on a bed bleeding, and if it was required that they actually treat him, they were not gentle. Let's see. Room 336, room 336. He mentally chanted as he looked over the series of doors that he by. Ah, here it is. Finding his destination, the Heng Jinchuriki slipped into the room. Upon entering, he saw that two others were also in the room. Both on guard due to his sudden entrance, however he quickly put them at ease by dropping his henge. Sorry for the scare. Naruto apologized to the two Kumo Kunoichi in the room. The front desk is not usually forthcoming with any information when I ask. That is understandable. Mabui replied. Were you able to visit your friend? I did, the blonde replied. She's in rough shape because of what her cousin did, but Kurenai-sensei said that she would pull through. How is he? Omoi is stubborn. The silver-haired Kunoichi sighed. Stepping away from her teammate's bed. But he should be waking up any moment no. Almost as if on cue, the white-haired genin began to stir from his sleep, groaning in protest before his eyes slowly opened. Seeing his two female teammates, he couldn't help but smile, especially at Mabui. However, as soon as his eyes landed on the third person in the room, his face contorted into a deep scowl. What is he doing here? He asked, with no small amount of venom. Omoi, what the hell were you thinking? The silver-haired Kunoichi demanded as she crossed her arms over her chest. What? Was the white-haired genin's intelligent response. You were purposely trying to kill Naruto-kun during your match. Mabui stated with a scowl across her face. So, Omoi shrugged, causing the silver-haired Kunoichi to slightly growl at her teammate's lack of empathy. So, Karui questioned, having similar thoughts to her silver-haired teammate. That's all you have to say? Yeah, so what? Omoi countered, glaring at the blonde in the room. Would have succeeded to if this bastard didn't use such a cheap tactic with his damn clones. And then what? Mabui demanded. What did you think was going to happen then? That I was just going to jump into your arms? Not to mention, had you succeeded, Raikage-sama would no doubt have you executed, if not thrown into prison for life. Karui pointed out, causing the young Kumo genin to widen his eyes in horror. Or did you forget that the primary reason for their betrothal was to secure an alliance between Kumogakure and Barugakure? And that is even if you survived long enough to leave the village. Naruto decided to add his two ryo to the conversation. Can you imagine what the girls, my other fiancés, would do to you had you succeeded in killing me? And need I remind you that one of them is Rory the Reaper? Hearing the ruby-eyed, Ravenette's nickname caused a shiver of fear to travel down the poor Kumo boy's spine. And she isn't even the one you would need to worry about. The blonde continued with a slight chuckle, catching the other three occupants' attention. She may not look it, but Kairi-chan has a hell of a temper, just like my mother. Seriously Omoi, Karui sighed. What the hell is wrong with you? Normally you would come up with countless outlandish outcomes for even the smallest of actions, yet when you actually need to consider the consequences, you didn't even think. For his part, the chastised genin remained silent, his eyes downcast as his teammates berated him for his foolish actions. And to be honest Omoi, Mabui began, frowning at what she was about to tell her teammate. Both Karui-chan and I are strongly considering to have you removed from the team. What? The dark-skinned genin stammered in shock, his eyes snapping towards his two teammates. You fully intended to outright kill your opponent during your match. Karui pointed out, not because he was a threat to Kumo, or because he was an enemy shinobi, but because you were jealous. Not to mention, you've become increasingly obsessed with me, to the point that it is concerning. Mabui added with a frown. How long before you won't accept no as an answer? Omoi paled when he realized what the silver-haired Kunoichi was implying. Immediately, he wanted to deny he would ever consider such a thing, though he knew it would fall upon deaf ears. Especially with the way he had been acting, if the way both girls were chastising him was any indication. It was then that the dark-skinned genin had realized just how much of a jerk he had been acting lately. You're right. He sniffled slightly as tears threatened to fall from his eyes. I've acted like a complete jerk since we've arrived here, and I'm sorry, for what it's worth. Listen Omoi-san, Naruto began, as he took a chair next to the young swordsman's bed. I honestly don't think you're a bad guy. How can you say that? Omoi asked, surprised at the empathy the blonde was giving him. I tried to kill you. That you did. The blonde chuckled slightly. But you were also under a lot of emotional stress and desperate to gain the attention and affection of the one you desired. But, I can relate. Both girls watched on, as the young blonde continued to talk with their teammate. Curious as to what Naruto was talking about. I chased after this girl all throughout my time in the academy. Naruto began. Though whereas your object of desire at least viewed you as a friend and comrade to confide in, mine saw me as a means to vent her frustrations out on. All three of the Kumo genin could only look at the blonde in shock. Not too long ago, I got assigned to the same team as her. The blonde continued, and for the most part, things played out the same way they did in the academy. She would chase after Sasuke, and then vent her frustration out on me when she got rejected. At least until our first mission outside of the mission. During that mission, the seals I had placed on me finally broke, allowing me to breathe free air once more. He carried on, earning a look of confusion from the dark-skinned genin, since both Mabui and Karui had a basic idea of what had happened to the blonde. Seeing this, Naruto decided to explain. You see, when I was 7, I was kidnapped from my home village by Konoha. They put 2 seals on me. A memory seal, to repress my existing memories of my mother and friends in Barugakure. They also put a loyalty seal on me to ensure I wouldn't think about turning against the village. Since then, this village has done everything to try and break me, with very, very few people who genuinely care for me. Why didn't you just escape after the seals broke? Karui inquired. Short version, I simply didn't have the skills. Naruto sighed, turning towards the dark-skinned redhead. Due to the memory seal, and with the way they sabotaged my training and education, I lacked the required skills to escape for long. Also, I couldn't leave Anko-chan behind. You mean the proctor from the second exam? Omoi asked, remembering the eccentric snake mistress. Yeah, her and I go way back. She was my first true friend in this cesspool. The blonde chuckled. She's a lot like me, constantly lazed by the villagers, though they know better than to attack her, though she does have to put up with idiotic perverts that think she is easy. Anyways, it was her idea to make our escape during the Chunin finales. He continued, earning a look from the three Kumo genin. That's kind of why I needed to shut you up quickly, before you spouted something that could jeopardize our escape plan. Omoi looked down, a bit ashamed before a question occurred to him. How did you beat me exactly? He asked. I know it wasn't just your clones. I could feel my energy being sapped away every time one of them made contact with me. The clones were part of it, yes. Naruto conceded. But the reason you felt your energy being sapped is due to the seals I had on my hands, that transferred to my clones. They are designed to drain a person of their chakra. Omoi could only gawk at the blonde, before letting out a soft chuckle to himself. You really are more than you appear, Naruto-san. He admitted, a little disappointed that not only had he let his own emotions get the better of him, but that he had also underestimated his opponent. In a real battle, it would have cost him more than a simple loss. It would have cost him, and potentially his teammates their lives. Naruto-san, Omoi began, looking to the blonde genin. I am sorry. I am sorry for my actions against you, and by extension, the frustration I have caused those around you. You're forgiven. Naruto smiled, extending his hand towards the bedridden genin. Smiling at the gesture, Omoi took the blonde's hand and gave it a firm shake. Anyways, I should go and see how my worthless sensei is going to shrug off my training. Naruto stated as he stood up from the chair he had been sitting in, already having a hunch that Kakashi was going to brush him off for some reason or another. Not that the blonde intended to train with his kidnapper, but he had to keep up appearances. You should warn them about the invasion, Kurama advised. Shit. Almost forgot about that. Naruto mentally groaned. Thanks, Kurama. By the way, be careful during the finals. Naruto informed the trio. Orochimaru is planning an invasion. So be careful. Thank you for warning us, Naruto-kun. Mabui bowed in gratitude. We'll make sure we are ready. Is that when you're going to make your escape? Omoi inquired. There will be a lot of confusion, perfect time to slip away. Naruto stated. Though, I am worried about those I hold dear. The Ikirukas, Sakura-chan, and Hinata-chan, mostly. We'll make sure they're safe, Naruto-san. Omoi stated. On my honor as a swordsman. Thank you, Omoi-san. With nothing left to say, Naruto bid the trio one final goodbye before departing the room to find his supposed sensei. A few minutes later. Ah, there you are, Naruto. Kakashi beamed as he stood before the blonde genin, his nose buried in his famous orange book. Just behind him, stood the raven-haired Uchiha. Arms crossed, with a look of annoyance and a mixture of suspicion, as the boy glared at the silver-haired man. Hey Kakashi-sensei. Naruto greeted the man with his usual cheerfulness. So, what are we going to train in to get Tem and I ready for the finals? Sasuke grunted at the blonde's jab at him, but ignored it nonetheless. It was a usual greeting between the two of them. Kakashi, on the other hand, frowned behind his mask. Actually, I will be focusing on Sasuke alone for the month, since he will be facing a far more dangerous opponent than you will be. The silver-haired Jonin explained, causing Naruto's smile to drop. However, Hokage-sama has arranged a special tutor for you to train you for the month. Hearing this, the blonde's eyes narrowed slightly as a sinking feeling formed in his gut. No good could come of the old bastard personally hand-picking someone to train him for the finals. Especially if it was who the young Jinchuriki thought it was, which was very likely, given the scenario. The bastard Kakashi was going to be focusing solely on the last loyal Uchiha. His fiancés from Barugakure were currently in the village, partaking in the exams, and the old bastard himself would supposedly have his hands tied with organizing the finals. which only left one person the old monkey would trust to personally oversee the blonde's training. Jiraiya, the one that designed the memory and loyalty seal that had been placed on him. Figures the old bastard would bring in that perverted frog. Naruto mentally growled. No doubt because of the girls being in the village, he wants to keep me away. Hide his sins. We can't let that happen, Kit. Kurama advised. Not when we are so close to getting out of here. I know, and I have an idea. The blonde urged his companion. You're going to use a blood clone, aren't you? Yup. Boot. Naruto mentally grimaced at what he was going to have to do. I am going to need to apply the actual memory and loyalty seal on it, so the frog doesn't suspect anything. And with my chakra empowering it, he will think it is the real you. The fox stated, catching on to what the blonde was planning. But, what are you going to do while your blood clone is training with the pervert? Easy. Naruto mentally grinned. I'm going to be spending time with my Heims in the cabin Anko-chan and I built in the forest of death. Oh, the kitsune grinned teasingly. And just what are you going to be doing, alone, with all of your girls, unsupervised in that cabin? Arrow Kitsune. The blonde groaned, before turning his attention back towards Kakashi. Ah, okay Kakashi-sensei. Do you know who the one that will be training me is? I am not sure. Kakashi lied. But Hokage-sama thinks very highly of him. He should already be in the village, so I am sure Hokage-sama will be summoning you soon to meet him. Well then, guess I better not keep the old man waiting. Later Kakashi-sensei. Naruto exclaimed and quickly ran off, leaving the silver-haired Jonin behind. Come on Sasuke, I got some special training for you to help advance your Sharingan further. The masked Jonin instructed, earning another grunt from the Uchiha. Though he if was paying attention, he would have noticed the raven-haired boy narrow his eyes slightly at him. Hokage's office. I must thank you for arriving on short notice, Jiraiya. Hiruzen greeted his favored student, as the Toad Sanin entered the office via the window. You said it was urgent. The large white-haired man stated. About the weapon. Yes. The village leader sighed. Against all odds, the boy has managed to ascend into the finals for the exams, and his first opponent is one Neji Hyuga. A boy whom had already attempted to kill his own kin in the ring, and will no doubt attempt to kill our weapon. Which puts me in a delicate position. Why not just remove the boy from the exams? It would raise too many questions to seemingly remove him for no reason. Hiruzen commented with a frown as he leaned back in his chair. However, there is another issue. The girls from Barugakure are here, and they are in the finals too. Hearing this, the mont's eyes widened in shock, as well as a hint of fear. Have they? He began to ask. So far, he has only had 2 encounters with them. The Hokage replied, knowing full well what his student was going to ask. And during both encounters, it appears that neither recognized the other. So that does remove one concern. However, with the girls in the finals, Kushina will be here to watch them. Jiraiya finished, feeling a shiver of dread travel down his spine. If she recognized the boy as her son, then things would go to hell faster than when he gets caught peeking in bathhouses. Are you sure there is no way to remove the weapon from the exams? Not without drawing a lot of unwanted attention. Hiruzen frowned, all the while cursing his luck. However, I do have a cover story for the boy, that should allay the woman's suspicions about her son. What I need you to do, is to take him out of the village for the month to reduce any chances of Naruto interacting with the girls. Even train him a bit, so he doesn't get himself killed against the Hyuga boy. How should I approach the boy? I'll leave that to you. The elder village leader stated. While he is with you though, make sure those seals are still tight, reinforce them if you have to. Understood. Jiraiya nodded before jumping into the window. Now if you'll excuse me, with so many foreign beauties in one place, I have research to do. And with that, the perverted toad sage was gone, leaving Hiruzen to shake his head at his student's antics. Still, as perverted as the man was, he was rather skilled with seals, and the books he produced from his research was a nice bonus. Half an hour later, hot springs. Of course that perverted frog would be here. Naruto grumbled to himself, having just forced himself to have a friendly conversation with the old bastard. However, the blonde stopped cold when he realized a very crucial piece of information. His fiancées were in the hot springs right now. This realization caused his blood to boil at the thought of his supposed godfather perving on his girls, again. Sure enough, a few steps later, he heard the distinctive sound of a perverted giggle, causing Naruto to clench his fist in anger. However, before he allowed his temper to get the better of him, he remembered another, very crucial fact. Not only were his fiancées current in the hot springs, but so were Konoha's infamous, Ice Queens. A sadistic grin spread across his face. Finding the source of the giggling, he could see the white-haired man softly giggling as he jotted down various notes and rough illustrations in his notebook of the girls that were currently enjoying their time within the springs. Grin still on his face, Naruto lifted his leg and with one chakra-enhanced kick, sent the perverted toad Sannin through the wooden wall and straight into the center of a group of extremely armed and very pissed off kunoichi. Screams of pain and agony erupted from the hot springs, as Naruto made sure to keep his distance, leaning against a tree well away from the hole he had created with the pervert's body. The last thing he needed was for the girls who were meting out the pervert's just rewards, to turn their attention to him. After a good 15 minutes had passed, the screams had finally grown silent, and a large group of women had exited the springs, all extremely satisfied with the work they had done. "Are you the one who pushed that pervert in?" a woman with purple hair inquired, as the group approached the tree Naruto was leaning against, prompting the blonde to turn and meet the group of women. All the woman that addressed him to recognize who it was. Naruto Uzumaki, named after Kushina-sama's missing son. The woman mentally recalled, though mentally frowned, as what the Hokage had told her, and her Anbu team didn't add up. For some reason, he had wanted the boy to be looked after, but under unusual orders to only prevent anything fatal from happening to the boy. In fact, the old man had removed her from her duty of looking after the boy because she was too good at protecting him. Yes, Naruto replied honestly. I absolutely despise perverts, so when I saw him peeking on you all, I thought it would be best if he was caught in the act, and get his comeuppance. Very thoughtful of you, Naruto-san. Aqua smiled as she, and the other girls from her team made their way to the front of the group. We thank you for defending our honor. It was nothing, Aqua-san. The blonde replied with a short bow. I look forward to seeing you in the finals. As do I, Naruto-san. The brunette replied, before turning to her team. Come girls, we have to get ready for our month of training. With a nod, all 5 of the girls from Barugakure separated from the group, though not before Rory gave the blonde Jinchuriki a subtle wink, causing the poor boy to blush slightly. Slowly, each of the women departed, each bidding their thanks to the blonde, though Anko made sure to bury the poor boy's head in between her mounds of flesh, much to his embarrassment and Kurenai's frustration before the Genjutsu mistress pulled the snake mistress away, finally leaving just the boy and Jiraiya, whom was whimpering silently in pain. As it turned out, Rory had clobbered him good with the blunt end of her halberd, no doubt causing blunt force trauma to his genitals. Even worse, Kairi, being the medic that she was, used her chakra scalpels to causing some severe internal damage to the pervert's privates as well. Ensuring that should the man would never be able to get it up, ever again. Meanwhile, the rest of the women had pummeled his body into a bloody heap that now lay panting in the shallow waters of the hot springs. And worst of all, at least from the Toad Sannin's perspective, Rory had destroyed his notebook with all his research with a Kaden Jutsu, right in front of him. Serves you right, pervert. Naruto commented, as both he and Kurama felt a sense of pride at seeing the bastard of a man in such a condition. Oh, Jiraiya groaned in pain as he weakly crawled his way to the opening in the wall where the blonde stood. That has got to be one of the worst beatings I have ever received. I can't feel my legs. Why would you do that, Yaki? Name's Naruto Uzumaki, and I hate perverts. Naruto shrugged. Now who the hell are you? So you're the brat sensei wants me to train. The white-haired man groaned, shifting into his role effortlessly. What do you mean, sensei? The blonde inquired, playing his part as the clueless idiot, before his eyes snapped open in shock. Wait a minute, you're. That's right, Gaki. Jiraiya painfully grinned. I am Jiraiya of the Sannin, the legendary toad sage. Normally, the man would strike various kabuki poses and do an eccentric dance, but currently his body was in too much pain to even breath. However, Naruto merely stared at him with a blank expression. How are you supposed to train me? He finally asked. I was able to sneak up on you as a mere genin, and you just got your kicked by a bunch of angry women. I was distracted. The man scowled, though immediately winced in pain. Anyways, just be at the front gates in an hour and be backed for a month. Jiraiya instructed between labored breaths as he attempted to stand up, only to fall to the ground once more. Actually, make that 2 hours. I'm just going to lie here and catch my breath. Whatever you say, pervy sage. The blonde shrugged and left the man on the ground, groaning in pain. Perfect. This will give me plenty of time to prepare. Naruto thought with a grin, and he took off towards his apartment. 2 hours later, Naruto huffed in boredom as he waited at the front gates for the perverted hermit to arrive. After nearly a half hour of waiting, the Toad Sannin finally made his appearance, though walking with extreme discomfort. No doubt, still not fully recovered from the injuries the women had meted out. Ready to go, Gaki? Jiraiya asked with a slight wince. You sure you going to be alright, pervy sage? Naruto frowned, taking in the condition his supposed sensei was in. I've had worse. The man tried to shrug it off, though it was clear that the blonde genin was not buying it. Anyways, let's go, Gaki. I got a lot I want to teach you. With that, the two made their way out of the village, unaware of a lone individual with blue eyes watching them as they departed. A grin on his face. Once they were far enough out of the village, the individual turned and quickly made his way towards the forest of death. Additional author's notes. End cut. I know, a little shorter than I normally do it, but it just felt right to end the chapter here. Next chapter will start off shortly after this before doing a time skip to the finals, and that is when it's really going to hit the fan. What with Kushina and Tsunade in the village, not to mention Corvo. Though he will be on a mission of his own. Harem, Anko, Aqua, Esdeath, Kairi, Koyuki, Mabui, Morgiana, Pira, Rory, Sakura, Zien, and Yoruichi. Without further ado, on with the show. Remember me. Chapter 12. Day of the Chunin Finals, early morning. The sun had just barely crept over the horizon, and already the main street of the village hidden in the leaves was bustling with energy and movement as stall and shop owners set to opening their stores and restocking their wares, whilst would-be patrons eagerly browsed, hoping to catch any early bird specials various shopkeepers would offer. Amongst the bustling crowd of people, were three individuals stood out the most, each for a different set of reasons. One male and two female. The lone male of the trio was a towering mass of muscle, standing at 6.5 feet tall with a wild and aggressive appearance that had intimidated a number of people that the trio had walked past, including the unfortunate gate guards upon entering the village. His long face with pronounced cheekbones was marred with a lone scar running down the left side of his face and a black eye patch that covered his right eye, indicating that the man was no stranger to combat. This was Kenpachi Zaraki, the walking demon of war and first guard of the Baruchage. On the left side of the trio was a beautiful woman with luscious scarlet-colored hair standing a good foot shorter than her male companion at only 5.5 feet tall. She has a slender, athletic build with voluptuous curves, making her the envy of countless women and the desire of even more men. Her outfit consisting of a custom-made armor adorned with a dark blue skirt and a pair of knee-high black boots. A pair of silver diamond-shaped earrings adorning her ears just under her hair. This is Urza Scarlet, the Titania, Queen of the Fairies, a nickname earned due to her position with a faction within the village known as Fairy Tail, and second guard of the Baruchage. The last individual, and no doubt the most important among the trio, was the Baruchage herself, Kushina Uzumaki. Her burnt orange cage hat covering the upper portion of her face, shadowing her deep blue eyes that burned with a fiery determination to get her son back and make those responsible pay for what they had done. When the girls had first notified her that her lost son was within Konoha, she was tempted to gather her shinobi and raze the village to the ground. Oh, was she tempted. However, her time as a village leader herself had tempered her impulsiveness, allowing for her to sit back and think things through more thoroughly. No, she wouldn't raze Konoha to the ground, that would be far too easy to accomplish and buildings could be rebuilt anyway. No, she was going to go for the throat and ensure that damnable old monkey and his cohorts would suffer for what they have done. I already hate it here, came the gruff response of the large man as his lone eye scanned over the numerous people, shinobi and civilian alike, that were filling the streets. Deeming all the shinobi he saw weak and unable to challenge him. I am not excited to be here either. Urza sighed, agreeing with her companion. But look on the bright side, Kenpachi. At least the main event should spruce things up a bit. The large man merely grunted in response, not feeling that any of the fools in the upcoming invasion would truly be a challenge to him in combat. Though, perhaps one could surprise him. He could only hope. Speaking of the main event, Kenpachi began, looking towards the woman walking between them. Are you sure about your orders to keep the old monkey alive, Kushina-sama? Of course. Kushina grinned, cocking her head to the side to peer at the large man out of the corner of her eye. Death is far too good for that old bastard. Turning to look ahead of her, the red-haired cage focused her sight on the faces upon the massive mountain behind the Hokage's tower, namely the face of Hiruzen himself. I want him to be alive and healthy when his dirty dealings are exposed for all to see. A sadistic grin spreading across her face. Chuckling slightly at their leader's intentions for the man who had ordered the kidnapping of her son, the two guards followed Kushina as she weaved through the people that were beginning to populate the streets as the day slowly began, with one destination on her mind. Hokage's tower. Hiruzen was pacing back and forth before his desk in a slight panic. The reason? The Anbu on duty had just informed him that Kushina Uzumaki had just entered the village accompanied by two guards. And not just any two guards. Two of the most renowned, feared, and respected individuals within the entire elemental nations, and perhaps even beyond due to their sheer power and fighting prowess. The mere mentioning of their name would make even the most seasoned of shinobi's blood to freeze within their veins. And now they were both here within his village, accompanying the one woman he had worked so hard to keep away. Letting out a long, tired sigh, the elder man walked around his desk and slumped into his chair as he placed his elbows on the desk and rubbed his temples in an attempt to alleviate the headache that was slowly building up. Please tell me you have some good news. Hiruzen stated as he felt a presence enter his office via the open window. Yeah, I got it covered, sensei. Jiraiya stated as he fully entered the office, having just dropped off what he thought was the weapon at the boy's place of residence to prepare for the finals. The seals are airtight, and even added a fail-safe, just in case. And what exactly is this fail-safe you added? The elder man inquired, quirking an eyebrow at his student. Well, I know for sure that the Gaki can't beat a prodigy like Neji. The white-haired Sanin began with a slight smirk. But, we can't let him get killed by the Hyuga either. So, once the Gaki has received a good beat down, I activate the seal and render him unconscious. Proctor calls it, and we're in the clear. That is if Neji Hyuga ceases his after the weapon falls unconscious. Hiruzen pointed out, after all, the boy attempted to kill his own cousin even after the match was called in his favor. I doubt he will be any less forgiving to the weapon after the boy foolishly vowed on young Hinata's blood that he would ensure Neji suffers for his actions against her. Jiraiya had to frown at that. To be honest, he had completely disregarded what had happened during the preliminaries and just focused on training the Gaki up a bit. During the month he had taken the brat out of the village to train him, which he had only really brushed up on the boy's taijutsu, which was severely lacking. Making the perverted Sanin wonder what the hell the instructors at the academy were thinking. It was one thing to ensure the weapon's strength and power didn't grow too fast, but it was an entirely different matter to set the boy up to die out in the field. Be it from an enemy shinobi, kunoichi, or just some run-of-the-mill bandit. Well then, we'll just have to make sure the Hyuga brat doesn't do that, was Jiraiya's simple response, earning a tired nod from the elder man. Has there been any news about her? She arrived this morning, just before you actually, with 2 guards. Kenpachi Zaraki and Urza Scarlet. Hiruzen stated, watching as the color drained from his student's face at the mention of the 2 guards' names. They were last seen stopping at Ichiraku's, no doubt to catch up with the father and daughter the run to establishment. There is no chance those 2 have identified the boy yet, have they? Jiraiya inquired after composing himself. So far, no, the Hokage answered. It's one of the places that is under constant Anbu surveillance after the duo had befriended the weapon. At any rate, we should make our way to the stadium. Hiruzen continued as he stood up from his chair. I want you to remain beside me during the matches. Especially with that woman and her 2 guards present. Not to mention, we also have the Raikage and Kazekage attending as well. Not to mention, Orochimaru is still lurking around. The Toad Sanin stated, earning a nod from his sensei. I've already instructed my Anbu to be on high alert for anything suspicious. The Hokage informed his student. For now, we have wasted enough time. Let us be off. Right behind you, sensei. Jiraiya said, not exactly looking forward being within close proximity with the very woman that was the mother of the boy he had conspired to kidnap. Chunin Stadium, storage area. Nervous. That would be the best way to describe Naruto Uzumaki right now as he paced back and forth in the small back room, and even then, that word alone did not fully describe the whirl of emotions raging within him at this moment. He was excited, nervous, and afraid, all in one maelstrom of emotions. He was excited, because this would be the last day that both he and Anko would have to spend in this cesspool of a village, and by the end of the day, both of them would be heading towards a better future in Barukage with his other fiancés. He was nervous because not only did he have to worry about the old bastard that had ordered his kidnapping, and his traitor of a sensei, Kakashi, but now he also had to worry about that frog of a Sanin that was supposed to be his godfather. Not to mention the countless other shinobi and kunoichi within the village that would follow the old bastard's orders without question. Lastly, he was afraid because if they failed to escape Konoha, not only would he suffer if caught, but so would those who were helping him. No doubt, the old bastard would force him to watch as they broke down and tortured each of his fiancés in inhumane ways, just to mentally break him into being their perfect weapon. Naruto didn't even want to consider the methods the old bastard would authorize to break him. Especially with his Heims involved. You're thinking too loud, Naruto-kun. A soft voice spoke from behind him, as he felt a pair of slender arms wrap around his midsection. Letting out a relaxed sigh, Naruto turned within her hold so that he was now facing her, wrapping his own arms around his blue-haired princess and gazed into her beautiful blue eyes. Leaning in, he gave her a light kiss on the lips before smiling. Thank you, Aqua-chan. He smiled, truly thankful for the distraction from the depressing thoughts that were entering his mind. I'm just worried is all. Naruto-kun, Aqua smiled, bringing her hands up to his face and cupping his cheeks. You're not in this alone, remember that. Not only do you have all of us, but Anko-chan as well, and don't forget your mother is here as well. You're coming home today. The snow cone is right, Naruto-kun. Morgiana stated as she entered the room, giving her blonde fiancé a kiss of her own to help calm his nerves. And not only is Kushina-sama here, she also brought Kenpachi and Urza as her personal guards. Hearing this, Naruto's eyes widened to comical proportions. Almost feeling sorry for any who would dare to get in the way of his mother now. Almost. Honestly, I think she brought them mostly to keep everyone safe from her. Zian commented with an amused grin. PFF'd. Those 2 were the first to volunteer to lead an invasion force against this shithole when we reported that Naruto-kun was here. Rory added, earning a slight giggle from the budding sword's mistress. Everything will be fine, Naruto-kun. Kairi simply stated, approaching the blonde and giving him her own kiss to reinforce her words. As Aqua-chan said, you're not alone. Trust in your mates, Kit. A deep voice rumbled within his mind. Their resolve will see to it that by the end of the day, we will be far away from this cesspool and back where we belong. Thank you. He smiled, as well as inwardly thanking his big brother figure. All of you. No words were spoken between the 5 girls as they encircled around their beloved fiancé and wrapped him in a gentle hug. Remember to act like normal when we go out there, at least until after my match is over. Naruto reminded his girls. Since that frog put an incapacitating seal on my blood clone, he will no doubt know that something isn't right when it fails to work. Not to mention the old bastard will recognize the whirling tides style taijutsu you will be using against the arrogant Hyuga. Not to mention your change in attire as well will no doubt garner his attention the moment you step onto the floor. Morgiana pointed out. Gone was the orange monstrosity that he had been forced to wear. Replaced now with a pair of black Anbu-style pants and shin guards that accompanied his combat sandals. For his upper body, he wore a simply black mesh sleeveless shirt that allowed those that looked to get an eye full of his developing muscles, and to wrap up his new attire is a long red-colored coat with a golden-yellow inner lining. Think it's too late to set up a camera to record their reactions? Probably is, though it would be amusing to see their faces when they realize all of the planning and machinations crumbling through their fingers. The blue-haired beauty chuckled as she imagined how each of their facial expressions would look. Everyone ready? A voice inquired from the doorway, prompting all to turn to identify the owner of the voice. We are, Mabui-chan. Naruto replied with a small grin as the dark-skinned teen approached him, wrapping her in a hug. Good. She smiled as she leaned up and kissed him before turning to the rest of the girls. Reikage-sama has been in contact with your mother Naruto-kun, and he has issued my team the mission to ensure that you are returned to Barugakure, where you belong. Don't worry, Omoi will still follow through on his vow to ensure those precious to you will be unharmed. Hearing this, the whiskered blonde was surprised. While he knew his fiancés and his mother would do all within their power to ensure his and Anko's escape was a success, he wasn't expecting the Reikage of all people to commit a team specifically to get him out of the village. Though, he shouldn't be surprised. After all, the whole reasoning behind the arranged marriage between himself and the Mocha beauty before him was to solidify an alliance between their 2 villages. So this is where everyone is hiding. A teasing tone came from the doorway, exposing one Anko Mitarashi as she sauntered into the room with her usual sachet. Ready to get out of this shithole, Whiskers? Damn straight. Naruto grinned, now feeling far more confident than he was earlier, now that he physically had all of his heims to support him. Good, cause your mother just arrived. The snake mistress grinned, and the old goat is in a panic trying to make sure his little secret doesn't get out. Damn, really wish we had a camera to see that, Morgiana commented, earning a chuckle from the group. That being said, Anko voice turning serious as her pupil-less brown eyes swept across the group before her. Be careful, all of you. We will, Anko-chan. The whiskered blonde smiled as he approached his snake mistress and brought her into a firm hug, giving her a light kiss on the lips. We know the old bastard is going to get desperate, that means you be careful as well. He knows that you are precious to me and he has already tried to have Sakura-chan killed in order to hurt me. And I am willing to bet he purposely sent you in hopes that you would have been killed after Orochi Tem showed up. Speaking of that, what is up with you and the cherry blossom? Anko quirked an eyebrow, as she had noticed the former fangirl had become a lot closer to her blonde lover. While she was well aware of the Pinket's intention of pursuing a friendship with the blonde, the looks she had been giving him were more than just a friendship. It was clear that the girl had fallen in love with him. Honestly, I don't know for sure. The blonde sighed, thinking of his complicated relationship with Sakura. Sure, they had kissed, but it was never really spoken that they were a couple, unlike the moment of passion between himself and Anko, in which the snake mistress had outright declared that she was going to be one of his wives. Much to the blonde's amusement. From what we saw in the Forest of Death, she seemed to have fallen for you, Naruto-kun. Kairi commented. Yeah, I kind of figured. Naruto nodded. Considering how she initiated a kiss with me during the Uchiha's match when she dragged me into the hallway to talk. Oh, so the little cherry blossom got bold, did she? Anko grinned. Did she use tongue? At this, Naruto couldn't help but blush, suddenly finding the wall far more interesting. This of course brought a teasing grin to the faces of the girls around him. Oh, she did, didn't she? The snake mistress exclaimed, her grin never leaving her face. All right, the whiskered blonde waved it off, trying to hide his embarrassment. It was just a kiss. I'm not even sure if it was just a heat of the moment thing or if she actually has feelings for me. Well, we will have to cross that bridge later. Aqua frowned. After we get back to Barugakure. Silently Naruto nodded in agreement. While he didn't necessarily like the idea of having to leave Sakura behind, he knew this was probably his only chance to get back home, where he belonged. Not to mention with so many people risking themselves to ensure he made it back to Barugakure safely, he couldn't ask them to endanger themselves further. All he could do was pray to Kami that she would be safe and that once he was out of the village, Hiruzen wouldn't attempt to use her as bait to lure him back. Don't worry Naruto-kun, Kairi said as she wrapped the blonde in a hug. Once we get back, I am sure Kushina-sama will have something in mind. Indeed. Rory nodded her head in agreement. When we were last in contact with her, she informed us to only focus on getting you out and that she had something big planned for the village as a whole, but didn't specify what it was. I am willing to bet it has something to do with the old man himself and the rest of the governing body as well. Xian added with a thoughtful expression as she speculated what her soon-to-be mother-in-law had planned. Knowing how Kushina worked, it was guaranteed that it would not be pleasant for those on the receiving end. Anyways, we should head out to the arena floors. Aqua stated, earning a groan in dissatisfaction from everyone. I know, I don't like it any more than the rest of you. The blue-haired young woman sighed. But we have a mission to complete, and we will complete it. Right. All of the girls exclaimed as Naruto chuckled at their enthusiasm. With one last exchange of hugs and kisses, Anko not missing her chance to further fluster the poor teen as she firmly pressed her generous mounds of flesh against his chest as she brought him for a deep and passionate kiss. Letting out a yelp in surprise when said blonde had proceeded to pinch her, earning himself a wicked grin from the snake mistress as if to promise that she would get him back. One by one, they slowly filtered out of the back room that had secluded themselves within. As Naruto left, he couldn't help but smile, knowing that by the end of the day, he would be well on his way home. Chunin Arena. Hiruzen could feel the sweat forming along his brow as he waited for his fellow Kages to arrive with their guards to oversee the finals and give their thoughts and recommendations for which of the finalists would be worthy of their promotion to the rank of Chunin based on the skill used in their matches. Not only did he have to worry about that Uzumaki bitch and her bodyguards, whom happened to be two of the most renowned names within the entire elemental nations. Something that did not sit well with the aging Hokage, since the village of Barugakure was known for producing the most powerful shinobi and kunoichi than any other village within the nations, naming Barugakure the strongest of all the hidden villages. A title, Hiruzen thought, should belong to Konoha, and Konoha alone. Hey you old goat. A cheerful voice broke the conspiring elder man from his inner musings. Been a while, hasn't it? Turning to his left, he felt his heart jump to his throat as the form of Kushina Uzumaki with both Kenpachi and Urza standing behind her greeted him. Swallowing to attempt to calm himself, he stood to greet his guest, as was expected of him. That it has, Kushina Dono. That it has. He gave a smile as he greeted the woman. Behind him, Jiraiya was eyeing up the woman's two bodyguards. Not surprising, the perverted Sanin's eyes stopped at Urza's before a cold chill ran up his spine, prompting his eyes to meet the eyes of the Valkyrie that burned with a hidden fury raging behind them. Hey, Kushina-chan. Good to see that you made it. Jiraiya greeted, shaking off the feeling of death as he turned his attention to his former student's widow. I gotta say, your girls from Barugakure are truly a sight to behold. Meanwhile, the Toad Sage could only perverted giggle to himself at the inside joke that it seemed only he was in on. Though the scowl upon Kushina's face made it clear that she was very much aware of what he was thinking. Do remember, Jiraiya, that you still have a standing restraining order that states you must remain 100 yards away from the girls, at all times. The Barukage reminded the perverted Sanin, causing him to shy away in embarrassment, as he had not informed his sensei about that little fiasco. And I swear to Kami, Yami, and even the Shingami that if I find that you have put any inspirations of them in that trash you call a book, I will personally see to it that you will suffer for the rest of your days. What does she mean, Jiraiya? Hiruzen turned to his student. It's nothing, sensei, just a misunderstanding. This pervert was caught peeping on the women's side of the bathhouse, while minors were inside at the time. Urza growled out, her eyes fixated on the shrinking form of Jiraiya. Hearing this, Hiruzen could only slowly lower his head into his waiting palm, letting out an exasperated sigh. Of all the things his student could get caught for, it had to be something as salacious as this. Misunderstanding or not, such a thing no doubt left an incredibly dark mark on the Toad Sage's record. Look, I didn't know they were in there, okay. Jiraiya tried to defend himself, though in reality he was only digging his own grave. I had just witnessed a group of delectable beauties enter the hot springs and desired to get inspiration for my next book. That really doesn't help your case at all. The Hokage sighed, shaking his head in embarrassment. So, old man, Kushina spoke, turning the elder mont's attention back to her. Have you heard any news about my Sochi yet? It was a question the old man had been dreading would come up. Unfortunately not, Kushina dono. He replied with a sigh as he cast his eyes to the arena below him as a few of the finalists began to filter out onto the floor. In doing so, he failed to notice the slight smirk on the woman's face. All my shinobi have standing orders to be on the lookout for the boy whenever they leave the village, sadly each time they come back empty-handed. I see, she replied, turning to her two bodyguards and giving them a small nod, prompting the two to take their seats behind where she would be seated. I thank you all the same, old man. Have you ever considered the possibility that the poor boy may have been killed already? Hiruzen ventured carefully. After all, it's been 7 years and there hasn't been any word from his kidnappers, not even a ransom demand. No, the red-haired woman replied. I know that my Sochi is alive, and I know that we will be reunited soon. I see. He gave a soft smile. I wish I had your optimism, Kushina dono. Taking her seat, Kushina inwardly smirked at the fact that the old fool has convinced himself that he is playing her, when in reality she is the one playing him. Without a doubt, this will be her greatest prank she has ever pulled on someone since her genin days. I must say, Kushina dono, that your girls are quite well trained. Hiruzen commented as he spied the group of girls from Barugakure gathering on one side of the arena away from the other finalist. Are you sure they are just genin? In Barugakure, we have extremely high standards for our academy. She stated proudly. We do not disillusion any of the students about tales of heroics with brave shinobi saving princesses and the like. No, we give them the brutal truth as to what it means to be a shinobi or kunoichi of the village, and what is expected of them. Isn't that a bit cruel, Kushina dono? The elder Hokage inquired with a frown. They are children after all. No, what is cruel would be to suddenly give an inexperienced and mentally weak kunoichi a seduction mission to secure vital information. Kushina replied evenly. These missions are too often solo missions, and if the kunoichi is ill-prepared, it could lead to her death or worse, capture. What would be cruel, she continued, would be to send an inexperienced team full of genin with their heads filled with tales of heroics on an assassination or extermination mission and have them freeze up after their first kill, thus putting the rest of the team in danger due to their inaction. We counter that by going into full detail of what can be expected from aspiring shinobi and kunoichi in their first and second years, going over various techniques and strategies. She elaborated further. By their third year, the students will witness live executions to get them familiar with the concept of death, as well as being given mock seduction and assassination missions with random chunin being their targets. By their fourth and final year in the academy, those who have not dropped out are fully prepared to enter the shinobi world. As it should be. A voice thundered from behind the small group, prompting the 5 present in the booth to look at the source of the deep voice. Standing at the entryway is a dark-skinned man with a muscular build. His blonde hair combed back, as a small mustache and goatee adorned his chiseled face. Behind him was another man of a similar build, as well as a young woman. Ah, Raikage Dono. Kushina greeted the mountain of muscle that had just joined them in the booth with his own 2 guards. Glad of you to join us. Good to see you as well, Yugito-chan, NB. Bah, none of this, Raikage Dono, crap, Kushi-chan. The large man barked out with a laugh as he approached the red-haired cage, his arms stretched out wide, inviting the woman into a hug. An invitation she took with a laugh. Alright, I-ni-san. Kushina laughed as she hugged the large man. Glad you could make it. What kind of cage would I be if I didn't show up to show my support for my own genin that have made it to the finals? The now identified I inquired in a humorous manner. Not to mention, it would be unbecoming of me to not show my support for my allies as well. What do you mean, allies? Jiraiya voiced in confusion, as his spy network had not made any mention of any alliance between Kumogakure and Barugakure. The last he had heard was that they were in talks of solidifying an alliance through the arranged marriage between Kushina's son and some girl from Kumo, but he had figured that once the brat had disappeared that all the talks would have ceased. It appeared as if his network was lacking on that front. I am curious as well. Another voice sounded, alerting the 8 occupants to see the cage standing at the entryway, a veil of cloth covering his face, as he usually wore. Last I had heard, the alliance between your 2 villages hanged on a marriage. You seem to be quite knowledgeable of things outside your village, Kage Dono. I spoke, his voice losing the cheerfulness it once had moments before. You wouldn't know anything of what happened to the boy, would you? Silence fell over the group as the unspoken insinuation floated over them. Of course not, Raikage Dono. The cage replied, raising his hands in a placating manner. I would not be so foolish as to orchestrate the kidnapping of such a public figure as the heir of the Uzumaki royal family. Hiruzen felt a chill travel up his spine, as he could have sworn that that specific statement was focused directly at him. Due to how on the nose it was. Well then, the elder Hokage decided to step in before things escalated further. Now that all of the visiting dignitaries are here, we can proceed with the finals. Yes, I said, turning his attention away from the cage and taking a seat beside Kushina as 2 bodyguards sat directly behind him. I am eager to see how each of the finalists will stack up against one another. Indeed, Hiruzen agreed. There are a lot of promising prospects this year. So I have heard, the large man stated with a slight grin, sending a knowing wink to Kushina. I am particularly interested in the boy who defeated one of my most promising swordsmen. Ah, yes. The elder man coughed slightly, feeling like he is being put on the spot. I was surprised myself when I witnessed their match. His performance in the finals will decide if his initial victory was a fluke or not. The cage simply stated in a neutral tone. Ha, Jiraiya scoffed. I trained that Gaki myself over the month. There is no way he will lose to that uptight Hyuga. While he knew his statement would come back to bite him in the later, when the brat ultimately failed when he activated the seal, a small blow to his ego would be a small sacrifice to pay in the greater scheme of things. Especially when the boy is finally broken and molded into the perfect weapon to secure Konoha's future at the top of the elemental nations, where it belongs. Oh, this genin must have made quite the impression if one of the legendary Sannin had taken interest in him. Kushina stated with a curious look on her face. You could say that. The Toad Sage responded, before a harsh look from Hiruzen prompted him to keep his mouth shut before he accidentally reveals too much. I just saw a bit of myself in him. I see. The Baruchage replied before turning her attention back to the arena floor. A ghost of a smile forming on her face as she saw a lone blonde boy, standing just off to the side of the others. For the first time in 7 years, she was able to see her son. Just you wait, Sochi, you'll be home soon. Well, suppose I should start things. Hiruzen sighed as he walked to the banister, allowing him to fully look down at the finalist. His eyes immediately searching for his weapon, frowning slightly when he saw the boy in his change of attire. Shaking it off for now, he turned his attention to the gathering spectators. Applying chakra to his throat to allow his voice to carry out over the arena, he spoke. Thank you everyone for coming to the Chunin exam finals. He called out, welcoming the village's guests that had traveled from all over to spectate the finals. Everyone from representatives for various daimyos that were unable to attend, to a mere traveling merchant. And each of them a prospective client. We will now start the main tournament matches, Hiruzen continued. Between these 16 participants who had striven and made it through the preliminary rounds. If there are supposed to be 16, then 2 are missing. The Kazekage observed, prompting the elder Hokage to look back at him through the corner of his eye. It appears you are correct, Kazekage Dono. I agreed. Specifically, it appears the Uchiha and an Odo Genin are absent. Forgive me for interrupting, Hokage-sama. The newly selected proctor for the final matches spoke out from the arena floor, catching everyone's attention. He was an average height male, with shoulder-length brown hair which framed his face. Wearing his hite-8 like a bandana, with the Konoha emblem located on the back of his head. But there has been some minor changes to the matches. I asked the contestants to double-check to see who you're fighting. It appears that Dosu guy dropped out. Kurama mused from inside the vessel's mind. Though, more than likely he was killed over the month-long break. Yeah, Naruto mentally agreed, and somehow I get the feeling that it was that Gaara guy that killed him. He reeks of blood and death. Seems the Uchiha isn't here either. Well, considering who he is with, are you surprised? The blonde retorted, earning a snort of amusement from the fox. Bet you the brat will get special treatment, even if he shows up late. That's a sucker bet, and you know it. Naruto snorted. Alright, this is the final test. The proctor stated, breaking the blonde from his inner conversation. I am Genma Shiranui and I will be the proctor for these final bouts. The arena is different, but the rules are the same. Genma continued. There are none. You fight until one of you die, or acknowledges defeat. But if I determine that the fight is over, you will cease all attacks. Understood. He received a choir of affirmations. Now, the first match of the exams will begin. Genma called out, looking to the finalist. First up will be Neji Hyuga against Naruto Uzumaki. Those not named, clear the arena and wait in the contestants' booth. In the cage booth, Hiruzen felt a feeling of dread wash over him as he felt multiple pairs of eyes burning into his soul. Swallowing thickly, he allowed himself to gaze over to where Kushina sat. Her usual warm and kind violet eyes turning suddenly cold and foreboding. Is there a particular reason that boy has my son's name, Hokage Dono? She inquired in a curt and professional tone. That child was a nameless orphan, left abandoned on the streets after the attack 14 years ago. Hiruzen began his well-prepared sob story, in hopes to allay the woman's suspicions. After your son disappeared, I decided to give him the name, to honor your lost boy. Kushina was silent for a few moments, seemingly digesting the short explanation the old man had told her, allowing her eyes to drift towards the arena once more. Before turning her attention back to the elder man. I see, that is very touching. She responded after a handful of seconds. However, I am curious as to why you decided you had the right to give him my clan's name. You are aware that the Uzumaki clan still has plenty of enemies within the elemental nations. I am hoping you were not intending to make the boy a target. Not to mention any traveling Uzumaki could lay claim to him, by clan rights. Both Hiruzen and Jiraiya silently cursed themselves, as well as cursing the boy for refusing to accept his new identity. I had not considered that. Hiruzen lied smoothly. I suppose in my desire to pay tribute to your son, I got a little too carried away. After the exams, I shall see to it he is given a more suitable name to not cause any issues in the future. Very well. The red-haired woman nodded, allowing the matter to settle for now. On the arena floor, both Naruto and Neji stood across from one another. Neji, as expected, dropped into his Juken stance, whilst Naruto dropped into a stance that made the old bastard's blood freeze in his veins. Shit. Hiruzen swore. Additional author's notes. And that's a wrap. I know, not a lot of action in this chapter, but a lot of build-up of what's to come. Don't worry though, most, if not all of the next chapter will be nothing but fighting and action. Now originally, I was going to have Naruto and Neji's fight end of this chapter, but as the chapter was already running on long enough, I decided to have some fun with Hiruzen and make him squirm as both Kushina and I verbally and mentally teamed up against him to make him sweat. That leads to my next note. No, Kushina and I are not in a relationship with one another. They have more of a sibling relationship than anything else. As of right now, Kushina will be staying a single widowed mother. Let's just say that things got increasingly chaotic these past few months, and admittedly, I did get distracted with a few games. Namely Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, now that it is finally available on Steam, which is my go-to platform to buy and play games. Of course that just awakened another plot bunny that I have sitting in the cage, though for now, that is where it shall remain, until it gets too fat and breaks out of the cage. Not to mention, I've become increasingly addicted to Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 2, which has only served to feed an older plot bunny that was born from the first Trails of Cold Steel game, more on that later. Anyways, we last left off with Naruto about to face off against Neji, while shifting into a taijutsu stance that is making both Hiruzen and Jiraiya piss themselves, since if it isn't obvious, it's a taijutsu style exclusive to Barukagear. Not to mention, both Hiruzen and Jiraiya are already shitting bricks due to not only Kushina being present, but also her two escorts, and there is the revelation that Barugaker and Kumo had gone ahead with the alliance, something that Konoha did not want to happen, as it would push them even further down the power rankings. Important note, I have altered the time of the Hyuga kidnapping attempt. I know in canon it happens when Hinata was 3 years old, but for plot purposes, it will have happened when she was 5. Still young and just barely starting her training, so she still wouldn't have been able to do much to a Jonin. Which means Neji would have been 7 at the time, putting him 2 years older than Hinata. Anyways, enough rambling, let's move on. Discord. Do you like anime? Are you a gamer? Then come join my Discord server, a multi-purpose server for video games, anime, and fanfiction. Authors are invited to come toss ideas back and forth and share their own stories, and readers are invited to add suggestions, make requests, or just chat away. Hit me up with a private message for server information. Review Corner. Jägermeister 31. I have an interesting plan for how the fight between Naruto and Neji is going to play out. Taking some inspiration from some movies I saw. Dragon and Sword Master. Admittedly, I won't touch on every single fight. But, I do plan on at least the main two. That being Naruto against Neji and Sasuke against Gaara, however I do have some twists to make it interesting. Bringer of Chaos and Destruction. Damn, that's a long name. Anyways, yeah, I decided early on that both Hinata and Ayame will be regulated as sister figures for Naruto. In all honesty, there are only 2 girls that will appear in every one of my harem stories, and those 2 are Anko and Koyuki. 2 of my favorite female characters. Everyone else will come and go, depending on my mood for each story. Millismith 1111. I have plans for Hiruzen's, Jiraiya's and Kakashi's punishments, and I feel that they will inflict a lot of personal suffering to each of them on different levels. Though with what I have planned, I think Hiruzen might be getting off the easiest. Pain 17ification. 1 update. Ready to go, as requested. Sorry it took so long. Harem. Anko, Aqua, Esdeath, Kairi, Koyuki, Mabui, Morgiana, Pira, Rory, Sakura, Zion, and Yoruichi. Without further ado, on with the show. Remember me. Chapter 13. Arena Floor. Neji narrowed his eyes as he observed his opponent that stood a couple meters in front of him. It was clear to the Hyuga prodigy that this was not the same Naruto that had vowed to avenge the disgraceful girl a month ago. Gone was the kill me orange monstrosity the teen used to wear, now replaced with a pair of black Anbu-style pants and shin guards that accompanied his combat sandals. For his upper body, he wore a simply black mesh sleeveless shirt that allowed those that looked to get an eye full of his developing muscles, and to wrap up his new attire is a long red-colored coat with a golden-yellow inner lining. It wasn't just the change of attire that alerted the Hyuga prodigy that the blonde was different from what he had seen during the preliminaries, but also his posture. Noting that the whiskered blonde stood straighter with more confidence in himself. Not to mention the taijutsu stance that the blonde had taken. It was foreign to the Hyuga prodigy, which put him on edge. However, he would not let these changes in the blonde distract him. Looks like you have something to say. Neji remarked smugly. Tell me, Neji-san, Naruto began, relaxing from his stance slightly, but not letting his guard down. Do you have any regret, any remorse at all for what you did to Hinata-chan? Why? The Hyuga inquired in an uncaring manner. She was weak and pathetic, as is her fate. Naruto frowned at hearing this, seeing that Neji held no regret for his actions. Even worse, dictating that it was her fate to suffer as such. Of all the things you could have become, you decided to be fate's little bitch. Naruto muttered just loud enough for both Neji and the proctor to hear, earning a slight snicker from the latter. Fate dictates everything, Neji stated, flaring his Byakugan to punctuate his statement. Everything. Fate has decided that you were to be a clan-less orphan with no talent. You preach about becoming Hokage, that is a dream that is well out of your reach. Look closer at reality, those that become Hokage are born into that destiny. Yeah, kind of don't want to become Hokage anymore. Naruto mentally mused. Barukaji Uzumaki has a much better ring to it. People must live within their own unchangeable flow. The Hyuga continued his monologue, before his eyes began to lose their luster, becoming dull and almost lifeless. Only one, the only destiny that every person shares, is death. So that's it. The QB spoke within the blonde's mind. The brat is holding a grudge against the main family. What do you mean? Back when you were 5, there was a lot of ruckus about an attempted kidnapping of a Konoha clan heiress. The fox began to explain, prompting his blonde host to remember back when he overheard her mother talking about it with her own counsel back in Barugakure. While the newly appointed Raikage was in talks with that insipid monkey called the Hokage, his own counsel went behind his back and ordered the emissary to kidnap a Hyuga from the main branch, which happened to be young Hinata. Anyways, Kurama continued. The emissary was killed and Kumogakure demanded blood be paid for the death of one of their diplomats, and Konoha was quick to pay, which leads me to believe the old bastard or at the very least, one of the elder council members, were in on it. Let me guess, the blonde Jinchuriki mused. The payment was someone close to this bastard. Indeed. The fox acknowledged. His own father in fact, who happened to be the twin brother of the current Hyuga clan head. So he blames Hinata-chan for his father's death. Correct. That's stupid. Naruto mentally scoffed at the supposed prodigy's stupidity. She was 5, what was she supposed to do against a seasoned jonin? Kick him in the shin? Hell, even if she tried to hit him where it counts, her strikes would be too telegraphed to an experienced shinobi. No arguments there. The QB snorted. Not even the brat at his current level would be able to stand against a jonin. Well, suppose we'll just knock that fate bullshit out of his head. Naruto grinned. What are you smiling about, Dobi? Neji demanded. Your stupidity, the Uzumaki remarked, earning a scowl from the Hyuga. It's as clear as the 10-foot pole sticking out of your that you are blaming Hinata-chan for the death of your father. It was her weakness that led to my father's death. She was 5 years old, just barely starting her training, dumb. Naruto scoffed at the Hyuga's ignorance. For a supposed prodigy, you are an utter dumb. Neji's Byakugan flared to life as he clenched his fist until his knuckles were white, incensed at the audacity of this clanless loser. That does beg the question though. Naruto commented, loud enough for all spectators to hear. How was someone able to infiltrate that far into the compound of a clan that can supposedly see everything? Up in the stands, Hiyashi narrowed his eyes at the statement the blonde made. At the time of the kidnapping, he had been so focused on his eldest daughter's safety that he had not stopped to question how the ambassador had gotten into the compound. As he observed the standoff below, the Hyuga clan head made a mental note to scrutinize his clan's records of that dreadful night, once the exams had concluded. If I find any of my clan had any part in Hinata's abduction, I will personally execute them, regardless of their position. Hiyashi silently vowed. Gazing between the two combatants, Genma could feel the tension radiating off the two genin. Chewing on his senbon with a smirk, the Jonin Proctor grinned as he gave the signal for the match to start and promptly jumped clear of the combat zone. Immediately, Neji disappeared from his spot, charging directly towards the blonde Uzumaki, his Byakugan blazing with fury as he aimed a Juken strike right towards the heart. However, the potential lethal strike was deflected as Naruto brought his left hand around in a circular motion while at the same time sending his right fist straight out, making a solid hit into the Hyuga's chest, causing the would-be prodigy to skid back, grasping where he had been struck, more in shock than in pain. What the hell? Neji mentally questioned. Not only was he able to safely deflect my Juken, but his counter-strike was so fast, I couldn't even see it. Lifting his gaze towards the blonde Uzumaki, Neji could see his right hand still extended before he returned to his former stance, with his right hand raised up, while his left was lowered, giving the impression of a rising tide. Whirling tide style. The Hyuga narrowed his eyes, now recognizing the taijutsu style the blonde was using. That's an exclusive style to Barugaker. How would the dead last know it? And to use it so openly in front of the Barukage. Allowing his vision to focus on the red-headed woman seated in the cage booth, Neji could barely make out a proud expression upon her face, making him question why the woman would be proud of someone outside of her village blatantly stealing her village's exclusive taijutsu. It was common knowledge that Barugaker was very protective over its techniques of every field. So the fact that the Barukage herself was approving of the Uzumaki, his eyes widened a fraction as something dawned on him. Could it be? The prodigy pondered. They both share the same last name, despite being in different villages, but her son disappeared 6 years ago, right before the dope arrived in Konoha. But Hokage-sama said he was just some orphan he took pity on. So, you attempt to defy fate as well? Neji remarked, turning his full attention towards his opponent. Foolish. I will show you that fate cannot be denied. With that, the Hyuga renewed his attack. Attacking in a flurry of precise strikes, aiming to close the blonde Jinchuriki's chakra points. However, much to the ire of the acclaimed prodigy, Naruto effortlessly countered his strikes. Deflecting at the wrist to avoid contact with Neji's fingertips, which only served to infuriate the Hyuga prodigy further. Spectator booth. Holy shit. Tenten commented as she watched her teammate continue to attempt and fail at striking the whiskered blonde. Naruto is really giving Neji a hard time. Kakashi-sensei must have trained him well for the finals. Sakura frowned upon hearing this, knowing full well that Kakashi had made no effort to train her newfound crush in the slightest this past month. A gesture that did not go unnoticed by the weapons mistress. Don't tell me. Tenten began, looking to the Pinkett. Kakashi-sensei didn't train him at all this past month. Kakashi-sensei left with Sasuke immediately after the preliminaries. Sakura replied, leaning against the railing to watch the spectacle below. Earning a few curious glances from those around her, noting that she did not refer to the Uchiha with the affectionate suffix she had always used prior. And I hadn't seen Naruto-kun all month. Hearing this, all the rookies within earshot exchanged glances between one another. Noting the change in the Pinket's attitude towards her respective teammates. I even went to Hokage-sama, asking if he knew where Naruto-kun was, and all he told me was that he was being trained by someone he had and was currently outside of the village. Sakura continued with a mental frown. There had been something in the elder village leader's eyes that made her uneasy when she had asked him the whereabouts of Naruto. Well, Choji began in between munching on his chips. Whoever it was, really trained him well. Kiba was about to open his mouth to say something, but snapped it shut and pressed himself as close to the wall as he could just as the girls from Barugakure walked by, all the while Morgiana was grinning at the petrified Inuzuka. Since the feral Pinkett had utterly humiliated him in front of everyone during the preliminaries, he had given the Barugakure kunoichi a wide berth. However, as the group, Kiba found something peculiar in the way the girls smelled, but couldn't quite place it. Which frustrated him to no end. He knew that scent from somewhere, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. I gotta say, Ino spoke up after the Barugakure team by. His new look is certainly an improvement, wouldn't you agree, forehead? Sakura felt her cheeks heat up as her former rival put her in the spotlight again. Though she couldn't deny the new look on her blonde teammate made him look rather catching. Discreetly, she allowed her eyes to drift over to where the girls from Barugakure had settled a short distance away from them. He said he had a connection with them. She mentally mused, turning her attention back towards the fight below. I wonder what kind of connection he has with them. Perhaps we should go over and talk with them. Inner offered, only for the Pinkett to mentally shake her head at the idea. No, if they are connected to Naruto-kun, then talking to them could put him in even more danger. She reasoned with her inner persona. Especially if the Hokage is behind everything. You've been rather quiet since that one girl passed by, mutt. Ino teased, looking to the feral boy whom had yet moved away from the wall. You're not fantasizing about her submitting to you, are you? Hearing this, Kiba broke out of his musing and vehemently shook his head in refusal. No, it's not that. I swear, Kiba denied, not wanting to repeat what his mother and sister did when they learned of the remarks he had made towards the pink-haired kunoichi. In a rather elaborate punishment, the two feral women had recruited his sensei to place him under a multi-layered genjutsu, making him believe he was a woman for an entire week, while his own consciousness could only look on in horror in the back of his mind. He had to watch as he put on women's clothing and even flirted with some of the other guys in the village, making them question the Inuzukas. Trust me, I wanna stay as far away from that woman as possible. He continued. It's just when they passed, I caught whiff of a scent I've been trying to place. I know it's familiar, like I smelled it every day, but I just can't place it. Those around the Inuzuka frowned at this, since it was widely known of the Inuzuka's clan ability to literally sniff out things of interest, and when an Inuzuka took notice of a scent, it was not to be taken lightly. Normally the girls, minus Hinata, would accuse him of being a pervert for smelling the other girls, but it was evident in his face that he was absolutely terrified to even be near the Barugakure team. Well, Morgiana-san did say she had a fiancé. Hinata pointed out timidly. But if it's her fiancé, why would his scent be all over the others as well? Ino pointed out, bringing her hand up to her chin, before her eyes snapped open. Unless they're all with the same guy. Shikamaru sighed, muttering how troublesome this was. How would that even work? Choji questioned whilst munching on his chips. What a drag. The lazy Nara groaned before turning his attention to the others. Aside from the notorious Clan Restoration Act, various groups across the elemental nations openly practice polygamy, though they are still a minority. Now that I think of it, Ino began. Wasn't the Barukage's son supposed to be engaged to multiple girls before he disappeared? Do you think it could be him? That would mean that he has been found, and they are keeping quiet about it. Shikamaru pointed out. As the group discussed the possibilities of whether or not the missing heir of Barugakure was found, Sakura remained quiet as her mind began to piece together the clues she was given. With the combination of the information received from the Gossip Queen and the lazy Nara, it all seemed to fit perfectly together. Naruto-kun said that there was a lot of truth in what Orochimaru said. Inner pointed out, and we had already suspected that the Hokage was involved in his kidnapping, not to mention he said he had a connection to the Barugakure team. And with what Ino Pig said, that means Naruto-kun is engaged to the entire team from Barugakure. Sakura mentally stated as she cast her eyes up to the cage booth, observing the red-haired woman sitting in between the Hokage and the massive mountain of muscles from Kumogakure. Though now it all makes sense. Inner continued with her outer persona's train of thought. I am not sure how, but they discovered Naruto-kun was here, and the Barukage sent the team to confirm. Nami no Kuni. What? Nami no Kuni? During the battle on the bridge, Sakura began, remembering what details she could of what happened that day, letting her eyes drift back down to the arena floor. Barugakure is not far from there. They could have sensed when Naruto-kun used the Kyuubi's chakra and sent a team to investigate, probably the same team that is here now, and gathered information about our team, and Naruto-kun. Which means the Hokage, and those involved with Naruto-kun's kidnapping are royally Sakura finished for her inner self. No doubt in my mind, she is playing the Hokage and is just waiting for the perfect time to strike. Hey, forehead, Ino called out, waving her hand in front of the Pinket's face. You alright? Yeah, I'm fine, Sakura replied, storing her musings in the back of her mind for the time being. Was just thinking about something. Something? Ino grinned as she cast her eyes to the blonde down in the arena that was beginning to really lay into the supposed Hyuga prodigy. Or someone. Not now, Ino. The Pinket sighed. Wait, what? Kiba inquired, looking between the two kunoichi in confusion. Nothing you need to concern yourself about, Mutt. The blonde shot back, before turning to her friend. Right. Sakura agreed with a small grin. Troublesome, Shikamaru mumbled. Cage booth. Outwardly, Hiruzen Sarutobi was calm and collected as he observed the admittedly one-sided match down on the arena floor with his fellow village leaders. Inwardly though, he was seething. Watching as his desired weapon picked the Hyuga prodigy apart. Even going so far as to insult the Hyuga by engaging him in a straight-up taijutsu fight, and outmaneuvering him blow for blow. Casting a glance out of the corner of his eye, he could see Jiraiya attempting to activate the seal to render the blonde Uzumaki defenseless, but it was clear by the desperation on the Toad Sage's face that it wasn't working. I must say, Kushi-chan. I spoke up, causing both elder men to jump slightly at the sudden break of silence between them. Your son is quite skilled in your village's whirling tides taijutsu style, despite the limited amount of time he had to master it. To match and dominate a Hyuga's Juken is no small feat. That he is, the girls did a spectacular job in assisting in his training. Kushina grinned, casting a knowing glance towards the elder Hokage as he visibly lost all the color in his face, alongside Jiraiya seated behind him. NN now Kushina Dono, Hiruzen stammered. I have no idea what you, nor Raikage Dono is talking about. That boy is just an orphan. Cut the shit you old bastard. The Kushina cut him off, venom thick in her voice. I know you ordered my son's kidnapping, and you had that bastard Kakashi carry it out, along with the perverted bastard behind you to design the seals used on my son. I had no idea you would involve yourself in such a scandal, Hokage Dono. The Cage spoke, looking between disgraced men as if offended to merely be in their presence. And to think, you laud your will of fire as a shining beacon for kindness and tolerance. Perfect. Orochimaru mentally grinned. If I play my cards right, I could bring Kushina to my side to ensure I gain my revenge on the old fool and eliminate Jiraiya at the same time. Kushina peered at the masked Cage, but said nothing, turning her attention back to her primary target. Rest assured, you old bastard, whether you live or die today will be at my whim. The scorned mother promised, raising her killer intent to punctuate her statement. Hiruzen was silent for a handful of seconds, trying to come up with a solution to not only escape with his life, but to turn this unfortunate reveal to his favor. His eyes ghosting over the various anbu he had hidden all around the booth, though he could feel that each and every one was disgusted with his actions. Especially Neko, he could practically feel the hatred rolling off of her. How did you know? He decided to ask, knowing that it was futile to deny it any further. You didn't honestly think that I would send a team just to partake in these exams of yours when Barugaker has a more effective way to deliver promotions and entice new clients? Kushina scoffed at the Mont's ignorance. For all your planning, scheming and backstabbing, you failed to realize just how close Barugaker is to Nami no Kuni. So when the QB's power was unleashed for the first time, we felt it and I immediately dispatched the girls to investigate it. She explained. And by the end of the day, my son will be back home where he belongs and your dirty little secrets will be exposed for all to see what a rancid sack of shit you really are. Neither Hiruzen nor Jiraiya liked the sound of that. It felt rather ominous and too on the nose to be just a mere coincidence of words strung together. Almost as if she was planning to do just that, expose all of their plotting for the elemental nations to see and bring Konoha's reputation to ruin in the eyes of its allies, clients and even the nation's own fire daimyo. Arena floor. Neji groaned as he slid across the ground once more. Struggling to stand, he spit out a glob of blood before him, casting a glare towards the blonde Uzumaki whom was casually approaching him with no signs of fatigue. I'll ask you again, Hyuga, Naruto spoke, stopping just a few feet away from his down opponent. Do you feel any regret for what you did to Hinata-chan? This time, the Hyuga looked down at the ground for a few seconds before returning them to the Uzumaki. It was brief, but Naruto could see the subtle traces of genuine remorse wash across the black-haired boy's face before it disappeared. She was weak, he grunted, pushing himself up to a standing position, sloppily getting back into his Juken stance. If she hadn't been weak, then my father would still be alive. Naruto could only sigh, though he knew that Neji was only holding on to this invalid excuse to quell his own guilt for his actions. Only his Hyuga pride would not permit him to admit to his own foolishness. That is a naive way of thinking, and you know it. Naruto bit back. She was 5 years old at the time, just barely starting her training. Even now, with all of your training wouldn't even be able to match a Jonin and yet you expect a 5-year-old to be able to defend herself, pathetic. Hearing this, Neji snarled and threw a sloppy strike only for it to easily be deflected by the blonde before him, receiving a savage front strike to the throat that disrupted his airflow, causing him to cough and sputter before receiving a roundhouse kick to the chest, sending him sprawling to the ground once more. I will say again, Neji. Naruto stated as he approached the downed prodigy. You are a damned fool. Instead of blaming Hinata-chan for something she could do nothing against, you should be asking yourself how it was allowed to happen in the first place. What do you mean? Neji chalked out, peering up at the blonde in confusion. Think about it, where is the main branch's living quarters located in the compound? The blonde pointed out, causing Neji's brows to furrow in thought. In the very center of the compound, where it is the most secure. Naruto continued before the Hyuga could answer. So how was it that a diplomat from another village was able to infiltrate to the very center of the compound and abduct Hinata-chan? Right under the noses of a clan whose eyes can see everything. Seeing as he had not only the Hyuga's attention, but all of those in attendance as well, Naruto carried on with his explanation. Unless he had inside help. An invitation to the village for diplomatic reasons, detailed layout of the compound and the exact location of the target's room, suspiciously absent guards and seals upon his clothing to hide himself from the Byakugan. He paused for a moment, allowing his cerulean eyes to gaze up towards the cage's booth. It surely wouldn't be the first kidnapping they had a hand in. So I was right. Neji softly chuckled as he placed the pieces together. You are her son, the missing heir. I am, Naruto admitted, turning his attention back towards Neji. You may say that fate decreed that I be ripped from my mother and loved ones and forced to be the slave of a power-hungry old fool, but I don't believe in fate, I believe that we each have the power to shape our own futures through our actions and resolve. Neji seemed to ponder the blonde's words, as well as his explanation of how that entire event played out. He could not deny that Naruto had made some rather valid and unsettling points. It should have been impossible for anyone to get into the clan compound without being noticed by at least someone, let alone nearly make it out of the village with the clan heiress that should have been under guard the entire time. Unless someone had sent the guards away. So what will it be, Hyuga? Naruto inquired. Will you continue to be the slave to an illusion, or will you stand tall and forge your own path? Slowly, Neji nodded in acceptance before turning his attention to Proctor, whom was frozen in place from what he had heard and witnessed. Proctor, I forfeit this match. The now humbled prodigy conceded. Very well, Genma stated, snapping out of his stupor. Winner of the match, Naruto Uzumaki. At first, only silence welcomed the victor of the match with the exception of the cheers from the rookies as well as his fiancés before slowly the rest of the stadium began to applaud the blonde's performance. Giving a slight nod of acknowledgement to the spectators, he turned once more towards Neji and extended his hand. Neji looked at the hand for a brief second before accepting it before he was pulled up to his feet. Is what you said about the kidnapping true? Neji asked quietly as the two of them departed the arena to rejoin the rest in the contestant booth. I have no solid proof, but the kidnapper had to have inside help to get as far as he did. Naruto admitted. Jiraiya is quite skilled with Fuinjutsu, so not too far-fetched that he could create one to render someone invisible to the Byakugan. I suspect your clan elders played a part as well, though for what reason, I cannot fathom to guess. And the Hokage? The man ordered my own kidnapping. The blonde scoffed. I have no doubt that he conspired with the rogue council members from Kumogakure to create tensions between Kumo and the other villages. And to be honest, I think he was hoping to remove Hiashi as clan head so the Hyuga elders could place someone who would support him during the council meetings. Looking up as they neared the entryway to the stands, he could see none other than Rory waiting for him, alongside Morgiana. While each of the girls from the Barugakure team could hold their own against practically any threat, these two were arguably the strongest with their unique and even deadly mastery of their techniques. This is where we part ways, Neji. Naruto stated, looking to the Hyuga one last time. Please give Hinata-chan my regards and be sure to talk with her, because despite everything you put her through, she still loves you like a brother. I have much to atone for in regards to my actions towards Hinata-sama. Neji smiled sadly. Thank you for opening my eyes, Naruto-san, and I wish you a speedy and safe journey home where you belong. Giving the now humbled Hyuga a nod, he turned his attention towards his two fiancées as they approached him, each claiming an arm as they sandwiched both of his arms in between their busts, earning a blush from the blonde teenager. Kushina-sama gave the signal. As soon as the invasion starts, we'll cut through the forest towards the northern gate and from there travel to Nami no Kuni. Rory stated as they began to make their way towards the rest of the girls. Right now, Kumo shinobi are discreetly moving into position to ensure no Oto or Suna forces block our path, Morgiana added. And Mabui-san's team is currently at the ramen stand so Omoi-san can make good on his promise to you. And Anko-chan? Naruto inquired, worried about where the snake mistress was, since he had not seen her in the stands during his match. She is in the Jonin booth with Nagato-sensei. The crimson-eyed beauty replied. Don't worry, he will get her out of here safely. Explains why I couldn't see her, I didn't even look up in that direction. He breathed a sigh of relief. Casually, the three made their way towards the rest of the girls. Taking a side route to avoid going near the rest of the Konoha rookies as a precaution and to avoid having to answer any questions the group no doubt has right now. Sorry Sakura-chan, but I will explain everything when it is safe to do so. Naruto thought, feeling guilty about avoiding the picket. Spectator booth. Damn, Naruto made Neji look like an academy student. Kiba commented as the group watched the two combatants leave the arena together. I wonder who trained him over the month-long break. Tenten mused. Because his form and stance were perfect, and he flowed almost as if He were water. Sakura finished with a soft smile, happy that her newfound crush had not only won his match, but literally decimated his opponent. Do you think there is any truth in what Naruto said about the kidnapping? Choji inquired, looking towards the lone Hyuga among them, which currently had a frown marring her face. It does make sense. She stammered, feeling a bit vulnerable to have to remember without a doubt, the worst night of her life. I agree, it does sound quite logical for it to have happened exactly as Uzumaki-san stated, spoke Shino for the first time. Troublesome. Shikamaru sighed. But I would have to agree. There are far too many coincidences for it to have been simple luck for them to get as far as they did. I would recommend we switch to another topic, as the current one seems to make Hyuga-san uneasy. Shino pointed out, prompting the group to look at the trembling girl. I would agree. Spoke Neji as he joined the group, moving towards his cousin and embracing her in a warm hug. I am sorry, Hinata-sama, for my actions and the harm I caused you. Can you forgive me? Hinata said nothing, only nodding her head as she returned the hug. Happy to have her cousin back. Silently thanking Naruto, knowing the blonde had a large part to play in the Hyuga prodigy change of perspective. Damn, Kiba remarked at the sight. Did Naruto knock some sense into you or something? He would, how you would say, pulled my head from my. Neji chuckled. Normally he wouldn't use such a low-brow analogy, but it felt fitting at the current time. Speaking of Naruto, where is he? Ino inquired, looking around to see if he was still coming through the stairs. He is where he belongs. Neji replied, nodding his head in the direction of the Barugakure team. As the rookies turned their attention towards the implied direction, they could only look on in shock and awe as the blonde Uzumaki was currently surrounded by the girls that had seemingly formed a protective circle as they embraced him in a large group hug, all while showering his face with kisses. Gah! Kiba exclaimed as he turned and started banging his head against the wall. I can't believe I was so stupid. That's why the scent was familiar, it was Naruto's. The other rookies could only gape at Kiba's revelation, all while ignoring the Inuzuka's self-abuse. So, does that mean that Naruto is their fiancé? Tenten asked cautiously. It would appear so. Shino answered. Wait, Ino commented. If Naruto is their fiancé, then that would mean that Naruto-kun is the kidnapped heir from Barugakure. Sakura finished for her friend as it all clicked into place for her. While she had her suspicions, him being over there with the girls and their affectionate actions with one another had given her all the proof he needed. Hokage's office. A man clad in black with a uniquely designed mask, standing roughly 6 feet 4 inches seemingly phased in from thin air. A strange mark on his left hand glowing brightly as he looks about the room before quickly moving over to the empty desk without a sound. Expertly, he begins to fiddle with the lock of one of the desk drawers with delicate tools before a soft click is heard, allowing for a hidden compartment to open. Grinning behind the mask, he opens the compartment, exposing a lone black book. Now, all of your shady dealings and dirty secrets will come to light, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Corvo smirked as he flipped through the journal to confirm it was what he was looking for, before pocketing the book and disappearing from the office as if he had never been there. The only clue being the open compartment. Additional author's notes. End cut. Originally, I had wanted to proceed all the way to the start of the invasion, but the conversation between Kushina and the old bastard took a while as well as the scenes with the rookies. However, I kind of liked how this ended. We got to see Corvo do what he does best and procure a rather damning piece of evidence against Hiruzen and his conspirators.